All right, good afternoon. It is 1 o'clock on August the 8th. I'm going to call to order the work session of the Mayor and Council. I guess the first item up, we're going to try to move through this expeditiously as we can, as usual. We've got a couple of presentations, and we'll just see how it goes. We'll start with Jennifer. Are you up first? She's barely moving. Oh, it's under finance, but it's going to actually be Tommy. So A1, redevelopment plan amendment. There'll be a public hearing on this item. We'll take it up tonight. And so Tommy will be back. So right now he's just going to do a presentation on this, and then we'll see him back this evening. Tommy, welcome. Go ahead.
Well, thank you for having me. My name is Tommy Ratchford. I'm with Murray Barnes Finister. I'm excited to be working with you all on this project.
Get a little closer to the mic if you would.
Can you hear me better now?
There you go.
Perfect. So I have two items today. The first one is the redevelopment plan amendment. And y'all may remember in 2020, the City Council adopted its redevelopment plan and created the East Side TAD. And a couple months ago, both the school district and more recently the county executed IGAs, giving y'all their increment to work on the approved project at the Mirror Lake Connector. However, that approved project wasn't part of the original redevelopment plan, so it now needs to become part of the redevelopment plan to use those monies to complete that project. And so that's all the first resolution does. And the public hearing is to put people on notice that you are amending the plan for the purpose of including that project. And essentially that's what the first resolution does, and I'm happy to answer any questions on that.
All right, Council, does anybody have any questions for Tommy? Remember, he will be back tonight for a public hearing, but if we could clear
Mr. Mayor,
up.
we had talked about excusing Tommy for the meeting tonight. I mean, after all the council questions have been answered, and I think I can respond if anything comes up in the public hearing.
Okay. Well, so even if we do that, is there any questions for Tommy now from the council?
I already called the city and asked my question.
Okay. So now, Tommy, are you presenting this second item as well?
Yes, sir,
Okay.
and they're somewhat related.
So let me be clear, David. What you're saying is that we will still do the public hearing
Yes,
tonight, but
let's
you
do
will
it.
answer any questions.
I
We'll
will.
just excuse Tommy from having to come back this
Right.
evening.
So long as he answers the council questions right now.
Sure. Okay.
A lot of pressure on me. I appreciate it, though.
All right. Well, go ahead, Tommy, with the next item. The next item I have is A2, prerequisite resolution to exercise urban redevelopment powers.
Yes,
All right,
sir.
go ahead.
So in the first item, we were talking about your redevelopment powers, and in the second item, we're talking about your urban redevelopment powers. And essentially, the difference there is sort of, we're talking about a different vehicle to use to finance the project. Under your redevelopment powers, you can only back those bonds with a TAD increment. And so investors see that as more speculative than sort of a backdoor general obligation bond or some other type of financing. And so the legislature has provided for urban redevelopment powers, and the council would be able to exercise those by adopting the prerequisite resolution, which would start the process of creating the Urban Redevelopment Agency, which would be made up of yourselves, and then could undertake the financing and enter into an intergovernmental contract with the city, even though you expect to repay the bonds with the proceeds of the TAD. It just kind of takes some of the risk off the table for prospective investors, and so you get a better interest rate and a lower cost of funds. So that's what that resolution does, and at this point, happy to answer any questions related to that one.
Council, does anyone have any questions for Tommy on this item? All right, Mr. Tom.
Would you explain to them the timing of the August 22 meeting and why we're doing that?
Yes, sir.
And how that relates to all this stuff?
So to create an urban redevelopment agency, it basically takes 3 resolutions. This is the first of the 3, and this one essentially says that you'd like to exercise those powers. I'll be back on August 22nd if you all favorably consider the prerequisite resolution. And at that time, you'll designate an urban redevelopment area, which in this case would be coterminous with the TAD. So it would be the exact same area. And that would be designated. There would be a public hearing on that designation. And then following that, there would be an organizational resolution where you'd appoint yourselves as the members of the Urban Redevelopment Agency. Should you do that, after the City Council meeting, we would ask that the Urban Redevelopment Agency meet and consider the funding mechanism that we were talking about, the bonds, to complete the approved project, which is expected to be repaid with the TAD increment. And sorry, that's a little complicated, but it's the way to get the city the best interest rate and the lowest cost of funds.
Okay, we appreciate that. Are any questions for Tommy? Okay, if there are none, Tommy, we will excuse you, and you don't have to come back tonight.
I appreciate it.
David
It's,
will take this up for you.
Well, I owe David, and thank you all for your consideration and your time.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Keep your phone on in case he has to call you.
I'm around.
Gotcha. All right. Next up is Human Resources, and I think this is going to be a combo. We'll have first Wendell Strickland up for B1 fiscal year 24 medical and ancillary insurance renewal, and then we'll hear from Lena Taylor.
So I'm just up to introduce Wendell, just to go over some of the highlights here. Mayor and Council, thank you for having us. So we are doing the update insurance renewal agreements. We have Wendell Strickland, who is our broker with Strong Side Solutions. Just the highlights, he was able to negotiate the renewal down to 3.6%. Also, we have a zero increase on dental, vision, voluntary life, short-term disability, long-term disability, accident, and critical illness lines. The enhancements are reducing the specialty copay from $15 to $10, and then also reducing urgent care from $25 to $20. But Wendell is going to just dive a little deeper into some of that, as he has the executive summary that you all have, but you all just may have some questions regarding it, and then I'll be back after.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lena. Well, hey, everybody. How are y'all today?
Very good. Just adjust that mic if you would.
Yep. Is that better?
It is. Thank
Wonderful. Mayor, council, and staff, thank y'all so much for having me up here again. This is a great conversation to have. It's been a good conversation we've had for many years, and I look forward to having another really good conversation. So, Strong Side, and my name is Wendell Strickland. I'm the CEO of Strong Side Solutions, and our job as insurance consultants and brokers is to work with the council and staff every single year to look at your benefits packages. The benefit packages, I think, critical in attracting and retaining good employees. And your particular insurance program is particularly rich, and it's going to be richer at the end of this conversation, I hope. So we did go, with Lena's help and Tiffany's help, to go out and market. We marketed absolutely everything this year, including the TPA that we're currently using, including the networks we're using, including the pharmacy benefit managers using, including all of the dental plans, all of the life and disability plans. I think there were maybe 40 vendors involved in our bidding analysis, and it was quite exhaustive. We don't do that every year, but we thought with this year was a really good year to go out and check absolutely every single thing that we could. So we have some great news. You did run about 75% in utilization. You have some high-cost claimants that we're working with. The Angel RX program produced $120,749 in pharmacy savings. I think it's a fantastic program. The initial renewal this year was 9%, and as Lena mentioned earlier, we did get that down to 3.6%, 3.59%. Additionally, we looked at the PHCS network and its discounts against an Aetna network, right? So we looked at taking claims for a whole year and looking at what you paid this year, and then looking at what would happen if we just reprice those with Aetna. And we found that that we would generate some additional savings, about $181,000 in additional savings. So that's another one of the recommendations we might want to look at. That network is a little bit more expensive to rent. So when you rent that network, it does kind of net out at 5.5%, or about a 39% increase over the PHCS network. But $39,000 versus $181,000, I think, is a really good investment. Does everybody have the? Yeah. Okay. So if we go down to page 2, the top of page 2. We always look at pharmacy spend, and we look at pharmacy utilization and medication impact and effect on your employees. We look at what the doctors prescribe. We look at what they prescribe as the standards of care and how those drugs are used. And we found that a lot of the normal maintenance medications that your employees are already taking, there were some gaps in care. In other words, they weren't taking some of those medications. And so because the plan is running so good, we thought that this would be a good time to take a certain set of maintenance medications and take those copays to zero. It's several hundred medications. I think this is going to help your employees with maintaining their medications and taking their drugs on a regular basis. The cost to do that is about $4,000, $4,681. I think that is a great investment for the city. Additionally, we looked at diabetes, A1C, and body mass index, and I think everybody watches the news. Everybody hears about diabetes. It's on the rise. It's I wouldn't say an epidemic, but perhaps it is. And it's not going away. So we wanted to kind of get ahead of this. We wanted to be really forward-thinking, and Tom and Sarah and Lena and Tiffany and I kind of looked at this and we said, there's a couple things that we can do. There are certain diabetes medications that control A1C very, very well. And the side effect of some of those medications is they also really improve weight loss. And weight is, of course, a big factor, contributing factor to BMI and diabetes. So what we wanted to do was to include the certain diabetes medications that also have these weight loss impacts as part of the expanded drug list as well. And everybody knows about that yo-yo. I mean, I'm on the yo-yo plan, right? I drop 15 pounds, I gain 15 pounds, I drop 15 pounds, and it's not fun. And if there's a way for us to include some of these medications for some of your employees so they can help control their weight in addition to their A1C, so we wanted to make that enhancement as well. Kind of expanding on what Lena said, we wanted to keep so your primary copay is already at zero. I mean, just so you know, your benefit plans compared to your neighboring cities and counties and all the cities that we handle across the whole state and in other states, I can tell you that the benefit programs and the cost per pay period for your employees is spectacular. It is much lower than your peers in your own geography out here and across the state. So it is one of the richest plans that I've seen. And when people see the benefit guides and everything we produce, it's very encouraging, and it's really because of this council and your staff that we're able to do this. So we want to keep the primary copay at zero. We want to reduce the specialty copay from 15 to 10. We'd like to take the urgent care from $25 copay to 20. We'd like to implement the enhanced maintenance medication list at zero. We'd like to implement the weight loss for certain diabetes medications at standard copays. We'd like to switch to the Aetna network so we can gain that $181,000 in savings in addition to the things we're already doing with our other programs. So that's kind of the medical. Any questions on medical before I go to dental? Yes.
Mr. McPherson.
Okay, so a couple of things I had taken note of as I went through this, Wendell, is if I were shopping for a plan, or I owned a small business and I were shopping for a plan, I see the advantage of what you're saying. This is a great plan for our people.
Mm-hmm.
It's less. I haven't seen copays of $10 even when my kids were kids.
It's
I
very rich.
remember waiting till a Friday to take care of Pink Eye because I knew exactly what they had, and I'd go, $25 to get in there, and that was at a time when $25 made a difference in our family. I remember waiting till later in the afternoon, going, they'll call it in for me if I wait, right? Because as a mom, I knew what it was. So I get keeping it low, urgent care, getting our people at urgent care. What I want to know is if I were shopping, I also know that those kind of plans tend to cost a lot more. What I'm not seeing is you gave us, hey, it's $4,000 more to do this, but I don't know where to see this is what we would pay, but this is what it's going to cost, even the city amount. I see what they're paying in our documents, but I have no idea what the amount the city's paying for these plans. Seems like that should be included.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? So what's the overall cost? I don't know.
To take the copays down $5, I can run that analysis for you. It's really quite insignificant.
And it doesn't have to be one thing all by itself. If you say, okay, we want to do boom, 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 this is what we were paying, this is how much more it's going to cost us to make these changes. So I don't need everything itemized. I'm just trying to figure out the way I'd look at it if I were buying it for myself. Because the city is buying this,
They are.
right?
You
The
certainly
citizens are buying this. So that's one thing. If we could get a little bit more on what is the part, what difference is this making in what the city pays? Because I do get the benefit for the employees. I get that
Absolutely.
part. The other thing, just on the weight loss, and this is, let me ask you this. Do you have any opinion on these benefit managers? Because the Association for Mature American Citizens is battling some legislation at the federal level because of medications costing more because of what's happening with benefit managers. You know, it's very centralized, and there'll be like 3 big carriers. Okay, you're smart. You know what I'm talking about, right? But you probably know it better than I do. How is that playing into how that's impacting our people getting their medications or what's available? You don't have to give a
Those
whole.
are great questions with very lengthy answers or very short answers, and I can give either one if you'd like. But
Everybody would appreciate the short one, but I might like to hear the long one later, whenever, you know.
absolutely. So to your first question, cost. So we did run with the expanded maintenance medication list. We took everybody that took these medications last year, and when we took them to zero, that cost was $4,681. So that's on page 2, top left. Now, it's hard to say what the true cost is because we're also estimating that your costs are going to go down $181,000, even though your renewal went up. So the wonderful thing about self-funding is there is an expected or a max liability, then there's the spend, and we've been very good at controlling that spend. So even though there might be a top-line impact, that doesn't mean you're going to spend that money. It means you have to kind of reserve that for a liability, and we've been trending underneath that for many years now. So so we did go ahead and look at the putting in the Aetna network with $181,000 in savings. If you did the expanded drug list for the maintenance medications, that was $4,600. We don't have a feel for the diabetes medications because we don't know nobody's taking them yet, so they would have to start taking them. And that's something that we can monitor. The access that you're talking about, so there's 2 parts to that. There's the carrier part and there's the PBM or pharmacy benefit management or drug manufacturers. You know, prescription medications has been in the news for the past 2 election cycles for the president. I mean, it is a topic that everybody watches, and it's a topic that it seems to have no rhyme or reason sometimes. We can take, I don't know if you remember, the anaphylactic shock pens went from $60 to $700 overnight for some reason. The beautiful part about the city of Villa Rica and the program that you have is you lease an administrator and you lease a network and you lease a pharmacy benefit management company, and you're not as subject to the carrier rulings and the manufacturer rulings of how you have to participate in those. So you can make up your own rules and have it treated however you want, which is really nice. That's why we're in this program. That's really why we're able to make these changes year over year, is because we're not just using a straight Aetna or Cigna or United Healthcare and having them say, here's your plan, here's your 30% increase. And
We get a lot more say.
you get a lot more control, a lot more say, and you also get the opportunity to put in cost containment. So the Angel RX generating, I think it was $120,000 in savings is a $120,749 in savings is another way that while you might have budgeted for those medications, you're getting $120,000 less than you would have budgeted because of that program's cost containment. So everything that we have in place for the city of Villa Rica and everything that you're utilizing is allowing us to hedge against those types of spikes and valleys in those manufacturers. Now, you know, there are some shortages right now. There's some supply chain issues, and it's just like gasoline. When that happens, they take advantage of it and they raise their prices. And so what we do is we try to insulate you from that, right? We're not completely insulated from it, but we do our very best to make sure that doesn't flow through to your employees. So I don't know if that was the question, the answer to the question, or were you looking for?
I think we're kind of stuck with benefit managers. I mean, I see it as a middleman who is costing us more in the long run, but it sounds like, at least with what you're doing here, we're containing it as much as we can within the system that is operating, that we can't change by ourselves.
One more comment to that is that the pharmacy benefit management system that you have in is a fiduciary. That is the only one that we have found and implemented and work with in the United States. And so they're not allowed to make spreads on medications, and they're not allowed to change the formulary to meet an AWP minus 26%, for example. So you're in the best possible scenario. They get $7.50 to dispense a drug, and that's it. $45 for a prior authorization. So they're not using floats, spreads, rebates. They didn't, so just so you know, I think it was.
I know this sounds really complicated. If I hadn't read some of it's going
Yeah.
over my head anyway, but if I didn't read more about it, more of it would be over my head with the spreads and things. I know what you're saying. I don't know how many
you have
people
to
are.
you have to ask your this question: why did Express Scripts move their rebate company to Switzerland? Because in their contract they say they can only give you the information they have control of, and that's their way of just not giving you that information. So we don't use Express Scripts. We expressly stay away from Express Scripts
Good.
because of their contractual language. So I do think that the insight or foresight or whatever the sophisticated word I'm trying to say, from many years ago, the staff and picking these plans have really benefited the city long term. And so you've got a tremendous set of vendors, and you've got contracts that don't allow for some of the bad behavior benefit managers, pharmacy benefit managers. And so I don't think you're going to see the things that you're reading about on the news in your plan like you see for other people.
Okay, thank you. Two things, and I promise I'll be done. I want to know when we do things such as, okay, there's no cost for your medication or no copay because we think you'll take it if there's no copay. I want to see a return on investment. You know what I'm saying? Did we figure out that's really why people aren't taking it, or is it a lack of discipline? I mean, sometimes it's
It's
the
both.
money. It just is. So it helps to know, okay, so somebody's absorbing that. The money, the cost didn't go away. Somebody's paying it. I want to make sure we're getting our money's worth so that then if somebody wasn't taking their medication and now there is no copay and they're still not taking it, then the problem isn't the cost. And we figured that out. That's probably more on HR. HR gets to do that fun stuff, right?
But that's HIPAA, so I wouldn't be able to figure that out, who is taking what medicine. I wouldn't be able to even ask them.
We have reports that report on that globally.
You do have it, okay.
Something that will
Yeah.
guide us. Okay, and lastly, this is probably more for the employees with these weight loss pills for diabetes. I have not researched them, okay, just know, I have not researched them. A lot of them are brand new, but I will tell you this, the pharmacy industry does not exist to make you healthy. It exists to return profit. And that's okay, that's what businesses do. But their goal is not your health. Do not take any of these new medications without researching it for yourselves. And I don't know if you'd agree with me or not, but we know there's things that are out there, right? I had somebody who I know died that was taking something for anti-smoking, and a side effect was suicide. It's in their paperwork. People don't always know that, that can be, something. Please research these things for yourself. Do not take them because you saw a commercial on it or something that just said, hey, this will work and you can lose weight.
I think
Because-
that's great advice.
Yeah, most of them have side effects. You have to be a good consumer to take care of yourself.
The one good thing that we can do is we can report on this, and we can always do something different next year. So it's about trying, and it is certainly a big topic these days. And the employers are faced with, we're getting a lot of comments and a lot of questions and a lot of requests for these types of things. They traditionally haven't been covered before.
Yeah.
But our population's changing a little bit, and so some of these medications do have some really good benefits. And perhaps
Yeah,
some
they
bad
might
side-
be great, but don't go in
That's right.
blind.
Mhm.
Find out for sure and make sure you understand any side effects that could occur.
Wonderful.
All right, anybody else have any questions? Ms. McCoy?
Does any of what we've just talked about have any bearing on the price that's going to go to the employees and the price that the city is going to have to pay for our new insurance plan?
So there was an increase, so, and I think Lena will be discussing that here in a minute as far as rates and those things. My job was to cover kind of the plans and the strategies.
Okay,
Yeah.
But there's definitely some financial
Okay.
impact for sure.
okay.
Okay.
So that's medical. I've got dental, vision, disability, and life. I
Yeah,
can
let's
do.
go ahead and do
Okay.
it. Go ahead.
All right.
Mayor, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
before we
Mr.
get too far, my question was, on the weight loss, you said it was to the standard deductible, I think you said?
Copay.
Copay. What is that amount on those weight loss medications?
It depends on what tier they're in. They're usually tiers 1, 2, and 3, and they would have the associated copay with that.
Okay, because on the second, there's a document here entitled Weight Management is Synonymous with Lifestyle Management, and there's just kind of what looks like a random listing of medications, tiers, and prior authorization to cost them per month. Is that is that the amount?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was curious about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else before he does dental? All right, go ahead, Wendell.
So dental this year, we worked with your staff, and the thought was to provide some choice, maybe a high, low, or a core, and a buy-up plan. So we renewed your core plan, what we're now calling your current plan or your core plan, at 0%. So it's a $2,000 annual benefit and a $1,500 child-only ortho. But we wanted to add a $2,500 annual benefit and a $2,500 child and adult ortho as a buy-up. So now we have a choice. So if you want a lower price plan or a lower benefit plan, you can have a lower cost plan, and if you want to buy up to the other plan, you can as well. So that's dental. Any questions on dental?
Anybody? All right, go ahead.
Vision, it's the same plan. We just renegotiated it for a 2-year rate guarantee. Any questions on vision?
Anybody? All right, go ahead.
And then for basic life, voluntary life, short-term and long-term disability, this all came up for renewal. Like I said, we bid it to, maybe, I don't know, it's like 17 carriers. We were able to get the current carrier to give you a negative 21.6% on basic life, a 0% on voluntary, a 0% on short-term, a 0% on long-term, and then give a 24-month rate guarantee. So that is phenomenal.
Yep, very good.
And by the way, that will be 6 years without an increase with that carrier. So they're doing a really good job. And then, of course, we have the accident and cancer, and they just renewed as is with no changes and no price impact. And so then the recommendation was just to kind of look at all those things and see if you wanted to kind of approve those. So that's about all I had.
Okay, any more questions for Wendell before we hear from Lena on the rates? Okay, let me, wait just a second, Wendell. Is there any objection to making this consent number 1? All right, that'll be consent number 1. Thank you, Wendell. Let me hear from Lena.
Okay, so I'm here now to present the second part of this, which is the medical and ancillary premiums. As Wendell stated, there was a minimum increase, and it's on the Exhibit A of, I apologize. So there we go. So in 2023, it was 36.22. We still have the same tiers, the non-tobacco users, and then the tobacco users. We still doing our wellness program, which has really been a positive with our employees, as we are offering some great discussions on different health events, and also we've also included financial as well, because as we know, financial and health and wellness, it's all wrapped up into one. So I'm just going to focus on, for instance, our employee, only employees. So 36.22 on 2023, and then it went up a couple of cents on 2024, and that's the same throughout there. With our dental, we had a penny increase, which is that Exhibit B. Oh, I'm sorry, did anyone have any questions about Exhibit A? I apologize.
Anybody? Any questions? Okay, we'll talk about it in just a second. Go ahead.
Okay. And then on Exhibit B, we had a penny increase in our dental. And as Wendell stated, we are offering 2 options. So you can, we currently have the option where it's just child ortho. Now we are also offering child, and adult ortho. So you're able to choose either or depending on, the best choice for you and your family.
Okay, any questions for Lena on that? All right, let me point out, so essentially what you have presented here is and it looks like you've already calculated it. The increase is about 5.06%.
Correct.
And that is on the health premiums last year versus this year, and then the dental premiums was roughly 1 cent difference if you took the plan that you already had in terms of dental. But if you went for the new option, because then now there'll be a second option where you wouldn't, before you already had dependent minor ortho, but you could also have adult ortho with that now for just really looked like 50 or 60 cents or
Correct,
something different.
correct.
Is that right?
Yes, now the dental on both did go up a penny on both options, A and B.
Okay, I got you. But so that's really what you just presented there for us. Okay, Council, do you have any questions on that? No, you do, Ms. McPherson.
Yeah, but just real quick, the question I asked Wendell was probably for you. It's the idea of knowing, this is what it's costing the employee, this is the city's part, this is the difference, just having those numbers. That's all. Thank you.
Yes, so Wendell can definitely get that to you if you stated, right? Okay, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Is there any objection to making this consent number 2? Okay, then I will make that consent number 2. Let me just make a couple of comments, though, because there's really no reason to expect that Wendell will be back tonight. I just want to talk just a little bit about how significant what we've been doing really is, and we have had some hiccups. There's no question about it. I mean, there were times when our TPA was difficult. We were having problems getting some claims paid. We were working through some systems. We ran into problems with, let's say, for example, Northside Hospital. We had some stuff with Tanner. But I think all in all, every year we've been able to see that this plan has gotten richer. And by richer, I mean that the benefits have been more skewed toward the employee, while we've continued to save hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're near $1.5 million at the last time I took a look at it. And we do believe, I mean, it's probably anecdotal, you may well be right about HIPAA, but I'm sure generally or globally, Wendell is able to look at the entire organization and see that we must be doing something right as the cost of our plans continue to be moderated, and as we continue to be able to offer richer benefits to our employees without significant increases. My point is that people probably are going to the doctor more. They probably are being more preventative. They probably are taking more medications. I may not know that for sure, but I can tell you that anecdotal information that I just gave suggests that something is happening, or we wouldn't be able to continue to see the benefits that we're seeing from these plans. So I, for one, and I'm sure this council and all these employees appreciate what you've done, what this team on the HR have continued to work on, because this cannot be easy. It has got to be incredibly difficult. So I appreciate the work that you did there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tiffany.
All right, let's move on to governing body. I want to do something different. So these two folks needed to present today. What I want to do is skip down. I see we have our commissioner here, but he is not here as our commissioner. He has an item on the agenda, and as a courtesy, I want to skip down to C5. And Clint, would you be okay with coming on up? That way, if you do have something you need to do, but of course, we'd love to have you stay, but if you don't, yeah, I would love to go ahead and recognize you for what is really an annual presentation. So welcome. Come on in.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Clint Chance, I'm here representing our event venue at 2011 Carrollton Villa Rica Highway. This is our 18th year of having the Villa Rica Frontiers Rodeo. We draw thousands of people to our event over a 2-night period. It's scheduled for August 25th and 26th. For those of you that may not know the history of the rodeo, we actually started at the V-Plex with that in 2006. Had the venue there for 5 years, and a gentleman that I went to high school with was electrocuted to death, and there were some funds that was taken up in the community to build a playground in his honor that now sits at the V-Plex. And so we were actually going to move the rodeo arena next to a piece of property there that the city has since bought, but at that time that deal fell through, and Ms. Marchman will probably remember that way back in the day, probably around 2010, 2011. So we ended up having to move down the road, but we started off with the city. And we always came before you all to get permission to be able to put our signage out in the city limits, essentially for a 2-week period. And then we have all of the signage removed by the following Monday, the first work day after the event. So in your package, you'll see what we're asking is pretty standard. The Coroplast signage, we're asking the 4x8s not to exceed 6 in the city. The 4x4s, we're asking not to exceed 8. And then the small 18 by 24 inches, we would not exceed 50 of those. Just so you know, my staff and myself, we get the property owner's permission or the business owner's permission. All of the signage is numbered, so we have permission to put them out. We notate who gives us permission to put those out, and then we have them numbered so we know where to go back and pick them up and not leave any. Also, in keeping with tradition, for 18 years, we've always listed, since we did start out with the venue at city-owned property, we had insured the city of Villa Rica as an additional insured on our multi-million-dollar insurance policy. And so since the city has continued to approve to allow us to put out signage, even though it's not a requirement from your staff, we have continued to honor that just as an additional blanket of protection for the city to include you in our insurance packet. So that is a quick rundown. Also, we've always had some sort of fundraiser involved with our venue. This year we're going to have the Villa Rica High School band boosters that will be involved with the event. We've had the baseball team before, the football team before, boys and girls soccer all at the high school, and these clubs generally make several $1,000s each year. Some of them, it's their primary fundraiser for the year, but this year we're going to have the Villa Rica High School band boosters. So I'm happy to answer any questions or clarify anything if you have any, Mr. Mayor or Council.
That sounds great. So what will they be doing? They be parking
They'll
cars?
be parking cars,
That's
and they
what I
take
thought.
up a $5 donation and do all the parking both nights.
I think it's great, and I've had several folks comment, especially the soccer teams that have been able to go out there and raise funds doing that. So I appreciate that you do that. Let me just ask, because, and it may be in here, I didn't look, is it at the same location?
It is at the same location, and it's the southernmost piece of property that's in the city limits of Villa Rica.
Yeah, we know that property well. Okay, Council, do you have any questions? No? All right, well, is there any objection to making this consent number 3?
No objection.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Pleasure to do it again. All right, let's go, I'm going to scoot back up now. Let's get governing body, C1. This will be presented, I guess, by David. Is that you?
Correct.
This is going to be employee training, implicit bias. David, go ahead.
All right. It's my understanding that the report of Lou Deckmar, who served as the independent investigator involving the situation several weeks ago with regard to targets at a citizen's firearms training class, has been made available to the council, and I think it's going to be made available publicly probably later today. And in that report that we received back, one of the recommendations from the Chief Deckmar, who was the investigator, was that based on his findings, that he recommended that the Villa Rica Police Department implement additional cultural awareness training to mitigate potential unintended consequences in a training. In response to that recommendation, the city has gone out and attempted to locate an organization that could provide that type of training to us, and that's what I'm bringing to you today. Tom, Sarah, Lena, and I have talked with the group led by Dr. Bryant Marks. I believe you've got the presentation in your packet there of the law enforcement training that is offered through a group called NTIRE, which is the National Training Institute on Race and Equity. Dr. Marks is out of Morehouse College in Atlanta. We felt very fortunate to find somebody pretty close to home that could supply the type of training that seems to have been recommended by Chief Deckmar, and which would help address some of the issues that were raised in that training class. So bringing for you today the proposal from Dr. Marks and Entire for training cultural awareness, implicit bias training for the police department. And it's really got two components to it. One is the training component, which, as you will see, has a cost of $20,000. I believe that will provide 4 separate sessions of training, because we had to break it up because all the police department can't get together all at one time for it. And then there is a second component that is offered through the organization, which is a equity assessment, and it is something where they will come in and review all of our data and analysis, issue a written report of findings to us, and make presentations as to what the findings, as to whether or not there are any issues with regard to equitable treatment of people in the city.
Okay, so council, you have the backup information in the cover sheet. Are there any questions for Mr. Mecklin? Mr. Carter?
David, you said the report was available to us, but I haven't seen it. How was it made available? Was it an email?
It's an email. I didn't submit it.
I didn't see it either, so
Okay.
maybe you need to reissue it.
Who sent it out? I did. So it's been sent. Okay. Anybody else? All right. If
Yeah,
there,
I would urge
Mr.
you to
Mecklin.
read over it before tonight. I think it would be important.
Okay,
it-
the
go
second
ahead,
part on
Mr.
this,
Carter.
on the separate $10,000 charge, is that specifically for the managers, or is that, what is that?
That's an assessment of the,
Oh, he's going to come in and do an assessment of how we're actually doing.
right, correct.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else?
I don't know.
Ms. McPherson?
I don't know if it's a question. It said it should, on the cover sheet under purpose, it should be noted that the City of Villa Rica Police Department has received such training in the past in accordance with department policies and standards, operating procedures. I'm just trying to make sure that we're not duplicating anything we've already done. Are we paying to do something that we already do, or what is this on top of what's already occurred?
Yeah, as a part of their annual training, my understanding is that the police do receive some training in this regard as a part of the standardized training that's received through the post. And it is they receive some training in it, but it is not focused training like this is supposed to be. Every year, the police do receive some type of training about bias training. I think it is maybe one block of training, and it's not focused on as comprehensive a training as this is supposed to be.
Okay. And when was this added to the agenda? I know it wasn't on my original agenda I work from. When did this get added on?
It was probably late last week, because the report from Chief Deckmar didn't come in until just recently, and we thought it appropriate to get it on.
I don't think I've seen the report. You sent out the report?
Yeah, Teresa
Yeah.
put this on the agenda yesterday, sent you an email.
But, yes, I saw that there was an update, but it doesn't say what's been updated all the time. It'll just say, hey, here's the update, and then I'll try to match it up with the one I already have. Where is the report? Because usually I read everything I
Yeah,
get,
emailed
or I
it
flag
yesterday.
it. Pardon?
I emailed it yesterday.
Oh.
The only
So we
thing
were
I-
supposed to were we supposed to have it read before today?
No, it's not on the
What it-
agenda.
Okay.
The only thing I received from you, Tom, was...
I just want to be prepared.
Let me try to be.
We had to
let me-
wait until vacations were over to get people all back before we sent it out.
Yeah, let me clarify, I guess, just a couple of things. I didn't know, and as far as I know, I didn't get a copy of it from you yesterday to the council, so I can't speak to that, and I'm not going to speak to that. This implicit bias training, though, has been something that David's been working on really for several weeks, and even though this did come out as a recommendation in the report, that's not when this actually was was put together. David's been working on this for a while. In fact, this came up, some of this came up probably back in April, March or April, before this incident ever came about. HR had already been working on something like this. But once this incident came about, David looked at it, I guess from a different perspective and came back with this, and then Deckmar's report suggested that this training be done. Now, the reason that the report, I think we got it last week, is that right, or something like that?
Yes.
And it needed to, we wanted to give an opportunity for it to be reviewed by the chief, and he came back with some things that not any changes, he just asked us to redact some information out of it that identified some individuals that really should not have been in a public report. So that was the delay in getting the report out, but although these two things are tied together, this training really doesn't tie itself to the report, which does make me question one thing. You just said you should read it before tonight. What are you suggesting is going to happen
No,
tonight?
I just thought that it would be important for the council to read it. I think
I do
it's important
too.
for everybody to read it.
No, I do too.
And one of the reasons why it may not have come through on the email is it's an 111-page
It's huge.
document. The report is.
Get read by tonight.
Yeah, and it's not critical. I mean, there's nothing. I do want you to read it because it's important.
But you're not suggesting that I not put this on the consent agenda, though.
No.
So I may not take this up tonight, but somebody may want to talk about it, I guess.
I think it will be important for us to move forward on it. It's not an emergency for it to be tonight.
Yeah. So if the changes have been made and there's a final review, you think it may get released sometime today, you think?
It should be,
to the public.
yes,
Now,
yes.
I understand we've already sent it to the
To the
council.
council and the public. And let me clarify, the only redaction that has been made out of it is to remove the names of citizen participants in the Citizens Academy. We didn't think it appropriate for them to be publicly named in the report. That's the only thing that's been redacted. Everything else is exactly as we received it from Chief Deckmar.
Absolutely, and also a little bit of contact information for those individuals, right?
Correct.
Right. We just didn't want to put that in the public forum. Didn't seem appropriate. Okay, Mr. Carter.
All right, I would request that you make sure the council gets a copy before you send it to the public, because it didn't get to me. I've looked through everything. I've looked back a week. I don't have it.
I tell you what, after we get through with this, I'll run down to City Hall. I'll make hard copies and bring them to you.
Well, take your truck. If you got to get this many copies. Okay.
I'm a low-tech person, so I'll have you hard copies.
All right, let me just ask if there are any other questions on this. If there are none, is there any objection to making this consent number 4? Okay, all right. Let's move on to C2, cost for lighting along Mirror Lake Boulevard. I don't want to hear all the cheering from the audience.
Yeah, this is hopefully the end of the long and winding road along Mirror Lake Boulevard to get some lighting up there. We finally got the permission of the property owner to use a little tiny strip of their land.
Mm-hmm.
After we got that, we sent Greystone Power back out there to look and review what they would charge us to install that lighting, and it came back at being a little bit more than what they had first estimated several years ago when we first visited this, and this is now the cost that we've been quoted to install the lighting along the Mirror Lake Boulevard pathway.
Okay, this has been long in the works, as you have suggested in your comments. And do any members of council have any questions on this item? All right, Ms. McPherson.
Just a comment, because it is along Mirror Lake Boulevard, but let me just say for so many of us that live over there that don't live in Mirror Lake per se, that is the only safe section of path anywhere on Punkintown Mirror Lake Boulevard where you can walk. So, and it's been there for years and years, and it gets very dark, and people use golf carts, but people also jog, walk, or they try to walk up the dangerous side of the street, right, where there's no sidewalks, and then eventually get up to where they can safely walk up to Publix, Taco Bell, or whatever they're going to up there. Maybe a job. I mean, there's people that use that way. They walk on the side of the road and finally get to that safe path and walk to and from their job that way. So this will be nice to see this finally happen. It's been a long time coming.
All right, anybody else? Mr. Carter.
Okay, can you give me idea of how far apart lights are, how many lights they're putting in this section, how long is the section that we're gonna light up? We have it?
Short answer is I cannot.
Okay, we did specify the amount to be lit up.
Yep.
But they didn't tell us how many lights, they gonna put 2 lights, 3 lights?
I think
We don't
that
have a
would be
clue?
something that Bobby Elliott would have to answer, Mr. Carter, because I don't know.
Well,
Here comes the Bobby.
he's prepared to throw something in there.
Did y'all miss me?
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
All the power companies, when they have a task to quote on lighting, they have their own standards that they use. In other words, they have their own spacing, what they will put lights in. I cannot remember how many lights they quoted us. It's been probably 6 months since I've seen the sketch, so, but they'll light the entire path from Shoreline up to
The entrance in
the
Bear
entrance
Lake.
to the storage unit, yes.
I mean, the Publix.
Cube
Yep.
storage, yeah.
About 100 yards or so.
It's more than that.
Further than that.
It's more than that. But I understand. I think you understand what he's saying, Mr. Carter, that the company will determine the amount of poles and distances based on the coverage that has been required, which is from Shoreline to the entrance of the shopping center.
Yeah.
In other words, when we requested for Greystone to look at it, in fact, it's right on the service boundary between Greystone and Georgia Power, and we were glad that Greystone decided to try it. You give them the place, they'll go out with a roller wheel and they'll measure the distance, then they'll determine how many lights they go, and that's what they quote you on price.
There's already one in the middle, right? I think there's already one street light there, but it's wholly insufficient. I mean, this is exactly what we need to do, but I think there's one there, if I remember correctly.
But I
Okay.
don't remember how many.
Yeah, it'll be more than one.
Oh, yes.
Okay, any other questions? Ms.
On
McCoy?
that note, on that note, the invoice says quantity one, and we know it's gonna be more than one, but it says unit of measure is each. It's about $4,000 each, but the motion says, to approve the payment sum of about $4,000. I'm just rounding because I don't want to read the whole thing out. To Greystone Power for the installation of lights. Shouldn't it be each? Shouldn't the motion read each? Because the way it reads, it sounds like we're only paying them $4,000.
That should be for the whole job.
It should only be $4,000 for the whole job?
Yes.
Okay.
Greystone is very generous with municipalities on how they do streetlights versus some other lighting
Okay.
companies.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Bobby. All right, anybody else? That's great. All right, if there is no more questions, is there an objection to making that consent number 5? All right, let's go to C3. This is a revision to the Code of Ordinances, Villa Rica Fats, Oils, and Grease Policy. Kevin, are you doing this? I can. Okay. Go ahead.
The purpose of this ordinance is just to give the city a little more control in monitoring the grease discharges into our sewer system, or the companies or restaurants that are disposing grease, how they dispose of it. We've had some problems with it. Mr. Bain can probably speak to this more than I can, but getting in our sewer system and causing the city a lot of money in cleanup. These liquids turn to solids when they get into the sewer system, and it clogs up the systems. So we didn't have a way, we didn't have a way under the previous ordinance of really tracking from how this grease was picked up from the restaurants all the way to the final disposal. This will require the restaurants to keep a 3-part tracking ledger, so we know where it goes from the time it leaves the restaurant all the way to final disposal, so they can pop in the restaurants and track this and hopefully find out who's illegally discharging greases into our system.
Okay, and I know this has been a topic for a while because we've had a host of issues. We've had some illegal dumping. We don't necessarily know who's been doing it, but we even have some of these trucks that we know have been dumping entire truckloads into our manholes. We talked about how we would keep up with that, and this is sort of the plan that you have come up with. What I wonder about, though, is how will we notify all of the restaurants that this is now a requirement here, and what will sort of be our mechanism, and through whom? Would it be codes? Would it be through John Bain and his team, the fog guys? Would it be?
It's a codes
How are we gonna do
it's
it?
a codes enforcement issue, so I think we are gonna have to notify.
Will you go to every location, take a new copy of the ordinance and a summary? That's what I'd like you to do.
Yeah, and part of this is already in play. It was the final part of this document that we couldn't track where the grease actually ended up,
That's right.
so.
And do you feel like this is going to get us as close as we, right now? Because
Yeah.
no system is going to be
It's
perfect.
not gonna
We
be
know
perfect.
that.
I mean, somebody from another jurisdiction could come in and dump in our jurisdiction.
If
has-
they get, if
has
we don't
nothing to
catch
do
them,
with
I
us,
mean,
we
we
just
just.
gotta catch 'em.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, council, any questions? Mr. Carter?
Okay, this ordinance is strictly for businesses, not residents, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, the commercial disposal of large quantities of cooking oils and fats.
So you can keep doing that.
You can keep doing what you're doing, Danny. I'm just kidding.
Right in the lake.
Oh, excuse me.
Oh, you
That's a
better really be
clarification.
careful.
That goes to his septic tank, which means it's all on him. Okay, anybody else?
That means it's not allowed.
He's not beating up the system. He's beating up his own
Just that
system.
we've been hearing about this for years, and I think about this reason I don't use a garbage disposal, but because we garden compost, that's not an issue for me anyway. We collect all that and throw it in our compost, but it's really important for homeowners to do the same thing. Not only for your own pipes, but it costs all of us when we mess up the city sewer system. We all pay for that, it's our money. So whether you're in a house or an apartment or whatever, you do not want to be dumping that grease down. Take a paper towel, wipe out the pan if you need to, pour it in a little plastic container you saved from something else, pudding, I don't care what it is, from the grocery store, with the little lid on it, pour it in there, when it's cool, pop it on, throw it in the garbage, because it caused a lot of problems.
Okay, any other questions?
FYI, Mr. Mayor, 23 years ago, I implemented this at my house, so we don't dump stuff in my garbage.
Listen, we're doing better at my house too. We're becoming creative. We're putting aluminum foil down in the hole of the sink and then pouring the hot grease in there. And when it becomes a solid, we throw it in the trash. We're doing our part.
We can ours and then we put it in the garbage.
Who knew? A new tip.
Now I may get around to composting one day. I do a little gardening from here and there. These little planters I've got on my back deck, but otherwise. All right. Any other questions? I'll teach gardening another time. Okay, any objection to making this consent number 6? All right, thank you, Kevin. Let's go to C4, temporary signage for fundraiser sponsored by the Villa Rica Lions Club and Golden City Lions Club. Is this Tom? Is Miss McPherson? All right, go ahead.
It can be, even though it'd probably be better if it were someone else. I don't really have a lot to say about this. As far as we're kind of mimicking what the rodeo is doing for what used to be the Lions Club biggest charity fundraiser in the community. And the Lions Club does a number of good things, helping whether it's the visually impaired, people with diabetes, all sorts of things. Elisa could talk to it more intelligently than I could, and from memory, I never was on a committee that handled the advertising and promotions for this event. But we've done it now for years. It was the Taste of Villa Rica. This year is a fundraising concert. And you're actually allowed to put the signs up anyway on private property, but as a courtesy to the city, we just thought it's good to follow the steps of the rodeo and ask permission. You know, that we're going to do it, this is when they're going to be up, we'll be picking them up, and the event will be at the Mill Amphitheater October 6th, and we just need about 2 weeks to have the signs up with permission of property owners on private property. You know, they're not going to be stuck all up and down the highways and byways, and we've listed the number of signs, or the max number and the size.
Okay. Is there any questions on this item? I haven't read
You
it.
might
I'm
know more than
assuming-
I do.
I'm assuming that it tracks pretty good with the rodeo. I had no issues with this. Is there any questions on this, guys? Okay. You gave specific dates for when these would go out and when they would come up, and you guys would be responsible for that, is that right?
Mm-hmm,
Okay.
yes.
All right, is there any objection to making this consent number 7? All right. Then we will do that. Let's move on to D1, community development. Who's up first? Amendment to section 2.02 and 11.05 of the Villa Rica zoning ordinance in order to establish the joint city/school board committee, There'll also be a public hearing on this item tonight as it's a zoning matter. Who's presenting this? Ron? Hello, Ron. Go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So this amendment is, this actually came from I've been working with the city's legal team on this for quite some time, but this is in connection with the tax allocation district. So as a part of that, we agreed in our intergovernmental agreement to have the Carroll County School District as a partner on a joint development board that would govern certain developments within our city. For example, all multifamily developments, et cetera. So that there would actually be a recommending only committee. And then, of course, that recommendation, just like with the Planning Commission, would make their way to the City Council. And so, as a part of that, the staff went ahead and changed the ordinance and put this through the Planning Commission process. So they voted approval 3-0 with just one condition, which was to give detailed description of who the members are and what their terms are, and consideration of appointing members of the Planning and Zoning Commission to the new commission. There were some additional questions that I linked as well from the chairman of the Planning Commission as a part of the packets for today as well. But their recommendation of approval with conditions was contingent upon those being answered.
Okay. David, did you want to make any comments on this?
I do. First of all, I need to double check to see what the latest version is that we've submitted. We made a few little changes during the last week in section 2.02 in conjunction with meeting with the city and county. And I need to look to make sure that that has been put in there, because what we have agreed on with the city, with the county and the school board, is that we would have a 5-person joint review committee.
Okay.
The agreements that we had signed made it sound like it was going to be 7, but between the city, the county, and the school board, we've all agreed that it would be more manageable to have 5 members, so that you could have an odd number of members. So that change has been made. I need to be sure that that's included in the version that you have. If it's not, I'll get it out to you after this meeting. But it'll be a 5-member board. To answer the questions Ron posed, it's going to be up to y'all to decide who you're going to appoint as the city members. It's going to be up to the school board to decide who they're going to appoint. It'll be up to the county to decide who they're going to appoint. So all we control is our two members. There's been no discussion as to who that might be yet. So that'll be a topic for you to discuss later.
Okay. So this is a public hearing on this item anyway. We're not taking any. So verify that. I recalled you saying that you were working on that, but I never knew if that got some agreement. So it has gotten agreement. You just need to get it in this version.
Correct.
Need to be sure it's in this version. Okay. Any other? Yes, sir. Mr. Montahan.
Ron, so I'm looking at Roman numeral 8. Yes, Roman numeral 8, section D of 11.05. Action by City Council and the Joint Committee is the title or the header. I want to say it's on page 3 of the PDF near the bottom.
You said B or C?
D.
D.
Which
Okay.
attachment are you looking at?
11.05. Yep, there it is, right there.
Right.
So it says action by the City Council and the Joint Committee. And the City Council shall, within 90 days after the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Joint Committee certifies their recommendation, either adopt or deny the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission. But I think it should say the Planning and Zoning, that last reference to Planning and Zoning Commission should say the Planning and Zoning Commission and or the Joint Committee. And then where it says action by City Council, since it's a recommending body, I don't think there's action by them, but there's a recommendation. So I think it just needs to remain action by City Council, but the word and the Joint Committee needs to be down at the end of that sentence. If that makes sense.
Right, so the first underlined section of that subsection and the joint committee after city council would come out, and that second line and the joint committee would stay.
Right. The
And
second one would stay, yes.
Right, and then at the end of the sentence, and again, and the joint committee would be added.
Right.
Okay.
So I think you have to.
I got you. I'll make
Yep.
that change.
Yeah.
David,
I think
good
that's
with that?
it's a good suggestion.
So any suggestions that have to do with this document, I want to make sure we run through David. No disrespect to you, Ron, but that's what you're going to do with it anyway. So let's just do that while we're here.
I was still trying to find that, so in a nutshell, what are you changing in regards
Well, you
to
look-
P
it's
and
right-
Z and the joint committee?
If
right
you look
behind
right
you.
behind you there,
You see where it says Roman numeral
little.
8 there? Action by
VII.
city council and the joint committee. And the joint committee needs to be at the end of that sentence prior to the reference to the citation, the OCJ.
Of the planning, zoning, and
And
okay.
then it shouldn't be retitled action by the city council and the joint committee because only the city council takes action.
Yes.
And as Ron said, the joint committee will be a recommending body, so
Got it.
let's clean that up.
Thanks.
All right. Anybody else? Probably a good catch. Anybody else? All right, Ms. McCoy.
So this is an additional committee onto planning and zoning, so anything that goes through the TAD will go through, or will everything that goes through the TAD go through this?
No.
It's not restricted to
It's not
just the
restricted
TAD.
to the TAD.
Okay.
It's anything that involves high-density residential or multifamily rezonings will go through the joint review committee.
Okay.
So let me, just so we're all clear, because I don't want anything to get lost here, and catch me if I get.
Okay.
So any annexations that would occur south of the southern two most parcels in the city will go before this board. And any rezonings for high-density residential anywhere in the city will go through this board.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure, I know it may seem trivial, but it mattered in all the discussions, and it matters that we don't let anybody kind of get confused about what we're doing here. Ron?
Mayor, you said one thing. It should be south of I-20, not south of it's not the last parcel in the city.
No, not for the annexations. The annexations.
Annexation's just south of that?
Yeah, because we already have.
Okay, I haven't seen that. Okay, understood.
We could always laterally annex. We can't do it
Couldn't go
below.
down. Okay,
So, all right,
okay.
Ms. McPherson.
I think what just happened demonstrates that we probably all need a cheat sheet on this, so that we don't have to go back and maybe read every one of those intergovernmental agreements, that we understand what we agreed to with the school board and with the county, because citizens will ask too, and I'm telling you, it's hard sometimes to go retrieve this information. If we could have that in a nutshell. The one concern I wanted to express is that this all came about because of negotiations having to do with the TAD. I wanted the TAD. I thought the TAD was a good thing. It became a little hard and more arduous than we expected. We're the first to head down this road in this area, West Georgia, so we were the pioneers. So somebody has to, kind of pave that trail for those that will follow. And in this case, Carrollton already is. They're doing their own TAD. It's a little different. But the one thing I want us to be careful about is it looks like this is going to add more bureaucracy to everything we do. Now, whether that's legitimate or not, it doesn't matter. We agreed to it. We made an agreement with the school board and with the county that we would do these things together with this advisory committee. What I'm hoping we can avoid, and Ron, you and a few others will be the ones that'll get to see this firsthand, is what is that doing now when somebody comes to get approval for something, and y'all are gonna have to let us know if we need to change something, if it's making it difficult. You know how when we get too much red tape, and then people just wanna, put their head through the wall because of how hard it is to do something in Villa Rica. So I'm not saying it is the case. I don't want that to become the case, but I do know this is going to add bureaucracy we didn't have. So just keep an eye on it and let us know if we need to tweak or do something. Is it going to end up slowing things down more weeks? You guys will be the ones to observe that. I mean, we probably won't know if something is taking weeks longer because we've got to wait for another group to meet. I don't know how this is supposed to play out. It's brand new.
Yeah, they have deadlines to get it back to us before we would have to have it here to the city council, the same as the planning commission does now. So in reality, for the staff, it wouldn't add anything to our department. It's just a matter of just sending a packet out, an additional set of packets out to this new joint committee, the same as we would for the planning commission. They would already be compiled already. For our own commission, and so we would just basically just be sending them out to that next this joint committee. and
Okay, so
getting-
they have a
collecting the
timeline.
recommendation.
If P and Z tables something, that sets it back a month for them, which then sets it further. This committee, though, isn't like it's advisory, but they have to have it back by that date, one way or another, whatever it is. Yes, an answer.
I think one point to note is we intentionally set this up so that you don't have to go all the way through the P and Z before it goes to the Joint Review Committee and then to the City Council. The Joint Review Committee and the Planning and Zoning can be operating essentially simultaneously, so that we're not adding another month to the process. If they're working at the same time, then hopefully it's not going to create a long delay.
Yep. Okay. So,
Mayor?
Yes,
Sorry.
Mr.
Oh,
Montahan.
Mr. Carter had something, I'm sorry.
Mr. Montahan, and then
Okay.
I'll get Mr. Carter.
I'm sorry, Ron, one more thing I was looking at the other section, 2.02. Under 8, membership, where it identifies the different positions, looks like you have kind of like a straggler term here. On position 3, at the end of that sentence, there's a bullet point, and then it says Ward 4010121 to 12/31/2022. It looks like that's just kind of a straggler, maybe from a formatting issue.
Thank you very, very much. I'll take that out.
All right, Mr. Carter.
Okay, this flow chart that we've created, this new flow chart, did we create this along with the school board? We were working with them to do this?
Yes.
And they have approved this, not a problem.
They have I don't have it in front of me, but the one potential change that may be in there is that we have agreed on the flow chart that the Joint Review Committee would issue their recommendation after the Planning and Zoning Commission. I mean, I think they're going to get it 5 days after Planning and Zoning has had their public hearing. But yes, the school board has been made aware of all this, and they've not submitted any proposed changes.
Yeah, they're in agreement with the flow chart, but you say there's a slight change to it.
Yeah, it really doesn't change the flow chart. It's just going to be a internal timing mechanism that Ron's going to be able to work out.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So we spent a little more time on that, even though there's a public hearing, but this is brand new, and this required a pretty substantial modification to the zoning ordinance. So Ron, we'll do this item tonight and have a public hearing, and hopefully it'll go a little shorter since we got a lot of this out of the way. Let's go ahead and do D2, which is VA-06-23, 395 West Bankhead Highway. This is a variance to reduce the number of required drive-through queuing spaces. This item will also have a public hearing, so let's just briefly introduce it here.
Sure. The applicant MQSK has come before us quite a number of times before. We're anticipating this to be their last trip here, but this is the ice machine lot as we know it on Dogwood and Bankhead Highway, and they are looking to reduce the required number of drive-through queuing spaces from 7 required spaces down to 6 spaces. And so the staff is recommending denial, being that it is a self-imposed condition at this point.
Let me just ask you quickly. So did the number of spaces change? Because this is going from 7 to 6, and for some reason I thought it was trying to go to 5. It's
it was
okay.
only a
Are you at 7
one
to 6
space
right now? Is
reduction.
that what this is?
Yeah.
This is one space?
It's just one space reduction.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Any questions for Ron? We'll have a public hearing tonight. Okay. Mr. Carter.
That's only one space difference, and that is a very small piece of property that they're trying to do a lot of work with, trying to do some benefits to the city with that. Is it really that critical that we have 7 instead of 6?
Well, I can only really go off of what our ordinance's requirements are. And
So you're going strictly by the book, is that what it is?
Yeah, just restricted to what it is. But they have added additional reasoning in here, of course, for why this drive-through is different than other drive-throughs. We get that a lot. And so I would implore you to take a look at that in their reasonings.
Yeah, we'll take that up tonight. Anybody else? Okay, let's go on to D3, VA-04-23, 924 Carrollton Villa Rica Highway. This is a variance to permit gravel parking. So, Ron, this item also has a public hearing, so we'll take it up tonight, but orient everyone to where this location is and then introduce it.
Yes, sir. So this location is directly south of Bojangles on Highway 61. This is the lot with the Shell gas station on it. There's a billboard sign that's just underneath the area that we're talking about now. And so this property owner, Jerry Tolbert, he's looking for a variance on behalf of his proposed tenant that would like to utilize a section of his property to sell what we commonly see as or call storage buildings that people can buy and put on their properties, essentially large sheds. And in order to do that, they're looking to expand the existing parking area, which is all a mixture of asphalt and gravel currently. It's mainly asphalt in the gas station portion, but they would like to add a 60 by 20 parking area, and it would be a gravel parking surface, so it wouldn't be hard, a dustless surface like the ordinance requires. So the staff is recommending denial for that one, and that one is also self-imposed.
Okay. So this item has a public hearing. Is there any questions for Ron here? All right, Ms. McPherson.
Just quick, think about, do we have any requirements when something's added new? It's not exactly development there, you know what I mean? As far as landscaping or anything like this, and the reason I ask is it is a gateway into the city. So will that play in, and you can even answer this later, I don't care, it's just something I wanted to know. Gateway into the city, what we're putting up there, do they have to change something else on the property?
No, they don't, unfortunately. We actually went through recently our change of use clauses as well, just taking a look at them and seeing what we may be able to improve on. And without going all into that, landscaping specifically is an exemption from the development regulations for if it's just a tenant-to-tenant changeover. That's not something that we can actually enforce.
Okay.
Okay, this item will have a public hearing, so we'll take this up tonight. Let's go ahead and go to D4, amendment to section 8.27, liquor stores, package stores, and liquor outlets of the Villa Rica zoning ordinance. This item will also have a public hearing. This is really just a minor change to the ordinance, right?
Really
just
small,
briefly
minor.
give that, and then I
Yes.
suspect we can move on.
We really quickly passed section 8.27 sometime last year. We put in there a requirement for the liquor outlets to be located on a state route and a major arterial road. However, we don't have any of these major arterial roads in the city based on our city roadway classification map. And so the Planning Commission saw that as well, and we talked about removing language that specifically states that, and instead opening that up to all roadways. And so the Planning Commission recommended approval 3-0 for that, and the staff is also recommending approval.
Okay, is there any questions on this item? All right. This item will have a public hearing, so we'll take this up tonight. Let's go ahead and move on to D5. This is going to be Bobby. This is the final plat approval for Connor's Landing. Bobby, come on up.
Mr. Mayor, we have two final plats on the agenda. First being Connor's Landing. It's a 196 lot residential development, originally zoned PUD under the original Mirror Lake zoning back in 97 or 98. Was not part of the revised master plan. Everything has been inspected, all the infrastructure has been inspected. power company's trying to finish up the power right now. Maintenance bond has been submitted. By the way, this is probably the largest maintenance bond I've calculated in probably ever. So, streetlight fees have been paid. Water and sewer storm as-bills have been submitted and reviewed. Staff recommends approval.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions on this item?
I have
Mr.
just a
Montana?
question. So, I mean, Bobby, I think you were CC'd on a rather long email we received from a concerned citizen regarding
Is
this.
your mic on?
Is that better?
There
Here
you
we
go.
go. Bobby, you were CC'd on a rather long email that we received concerning this from a resident, local resident citizen. And she made a lot of, this person made a lot of allegations of things that were not prepared, like a traffic study and the roundabout being fixed and all that. What's your opinion on that?
Presently, we're working with the engineers to retweak that roundabout. If you're traveling from west to east on Connors, you have to really, really be careful because you'll run over one of the raised curbs.
Okay.
They're working on that right now, and hopefully we'll get that fixed here within the next 30 days.
Okay.
But other than that, that's the only thing that I saw that we really needed to address it.
Okay. What about this supposed traffic study that was apparently required? I don't recall this specifically, but it was supposed to have been required before final plat approval, and we received
Gosh,
that.
that thing's been going on, what, 2.5 years, almost 3 years that the subdivision has. Seems like they submitted some kind of traffic analysis on that. I'll have to go back and check my files.
Okay. I mean, you said the engineers are working on fixing the roundabout. Is that the developer's engineers? Or who?
Yes.
Okay. And if we approve the final plat, do we still have the ability to hold them accountable for those repairs after this is approved?
We have $873,728.
In the bond?
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, that was my questions. Thank you.
Yes, that roundabout was part of the Connors Landing development. They decided to put that in based on the proximity of where the eastern driveway to Liberty Point was, and everything lined up there, and they thought it would be a great idea, and I agreed, if it's built right.
Yeah,
Sure.
It's not, though. I mean, and I never substitute my judgment on traffic or roundabouts for the people who know what they're doing. I'm just telling you, as a person who travels that, it needs work. And I'm not going to tell you specifically because I don't know, but somebody needs to go out there and rework it. It's a problem. Yeah.
I can assure you it will be reworked.
Yes, sir. All right, anybody else? Ms. McPherson?
I did not get a chance to read through that whole email, but this has been going on for some years. I do remember previous emails, just not all the details. I also went out and looked at where we were developing, met with that family who's in the county. There's some other families and residents out there, and all I ever really cared about, Bobby, in the end, is that they have their lifestyle protected to some degree, right? They have a rural lifestyle, and we're putting in a big development. My biggest concern, like I said, I'll get that email read before this evening, was that we had appropriate buffers, between the people that are trying to keep their rural life and what we, in a big neighborhood.
Well,
And so.
When that whole thing came through zoning, I think we had a couple of meetings. And we discussed all of that buffering, because that came up big time. Ron was here. Ron's already gone. But he was here, I was here. We went through all that. So I will double check and make sure that everything that was on the approved plans should have been what was been talked about and agreed to.
Yeah, and thank you for checking, because I know my memory, I can't remember all that stuff from some years ago, but I know we discussed it. We talked about the buffering and everything else. I haven't experienced the roundabout. I don't go down there much, but maybe I should do that.
Just go slow if you do.
Yeah, I had a quip too, but I'm going to let it go. Anybody else? Okay. So is there any objection to making this consent number, where am I at now? 8. Consent number 8. All right. Let's move on to D6. This is the final plat for approval, Charleston Place Phase 3. All right, Bobby.
Mr. Mayor, this is pretty much similar. It's a 54 lot addition to the trails at Charleston Place. They posted $195,000 cash for their bond. Street lights fees have been paid. Everything's been done. Both of these final plats, both these developments have covenants that have been recorded. They will both have HOAs as well. It's kind of, I know the Phase 3 in Charleston Place with an HOA and Phase 1 and 2 didn't have it. So maybe they can talk some folks into joining. I don't know. But anyhow, we did not make that a requirement. They just decided to do it. So.
Because it was a Phase 3, but we are certainly encouraging HOAs and requiring HOAs in all new residential developments.
I can assure you that the sidewalk width in Phase 3 will be 5 feet, not 2 feet.
Well, some of that in Phase 1 has no sidewalk.
Yep.
And I think that, but listen, I live in a neighborhood in Mirror Lake that has no sidewalks. And it's odd to me because people think the Mirror Lake we got all the great and shiny things. I live in a pretty good neighborhood and we have no sidewalks.
It's the simple things, Mayor.
Yes, sir, it is the simple things. I appreciate that. Is there any questions for Bobby on this plat, Mr. Montahan?
No questions.
Okay. All right. Is there any objection to making this consent number 9? All right. Hearing none. Thank you, Bobby. Let's move on to E, Main Street. Item 1. I don't want to hear a lot of cheering. But new Christmas decor for downtown, something that is less than 40 years old, I guess.
Yes, yes.
All right, let's talk about it.
Good afternoon. The request I have in front of you is to the approval to purchase or rent new Christmas decoration for our downtown area. We have used the same decorations for a long time, and some of those need replacing. The standalone decorations that are being used are not commercially designed decor and cannot withstand inclement weather conditions with high winds that we experienced last year. We were continuously picking those decorations up. We'd come in on Monday morning, all the decorations on the stage would be blown over into landscaping. So we're trying to put a stop to that. They're not commercially designed either, so it's things that we buy at Home Depot. I went out and looked around for companies around the Atlanta area that you could either buy the Christmas decorations or rent them. They were commercial style. They would install them. They would bring them out, install them for us, or store them for us. We could have a contract with them where an annual installation where they would come out and put these up for us. So I found 3. I found several more, but they didn't do everything that I was looking for. So I found these 3 in the Atlanta area, and when I asked for proposals, there were particular items that I asked for, and there were additional snowflakes that we put on the power poles, just to have some additional ones when the other ones fail. According to staff, most of them still work, but I noticed this last year, but when I rode around with Jeremy Dukes, I realized that there are about 5 power poles from Jeff Matthews' office, where the old post office, all the way past Bain Dental, that have no snowflakes. And I asked why, and he said Georgia Power hasn't provided us power to those lights to put the snowflakes up. So you're going, why haven't you asked them? So that's one thing. I know Bobby's got a contact. I hope to get the snowflakes down that far to match the central business district down West Bankhead. It goes to the end this way, but going down that way, it stops too soon. So these would be additional snowflakes and additional ones, so if the older ones need replacing. And they're very similar to what we've got, maybe a little difference. I also asked for a new Christmas tree and the decorations that go with the tree. Since we do have a railroad track in town, I asked for a train set that we could set up in the train park. I asked for large ornaments for the stage, Carolers for Prospector Park. I was actually looking for a Victorian carolers, which I have found. Lighted garland and wreaths for the amphitheater sign, and a large Santa sleigh up in the train part that families could actually have photographs, a family photograph at, with maybe some decorations around it. And so I went through these three companies, and you'll see a price difference in some of these. And it's mainly because each company has their own design and style of these items that affect the pricing. And this style could be like a train set for Universal Concepts. A train set was $37,000. With the train set for Holiday Designs, it's much cheaper. It's just according to the design of that product that they're proposing on. So Universal Concepts, I spoke with them and got their proposal. It's $110,240. This includes installation materials, takedown. They actually store those for us, so we won't have to worry about putting them in a safe place to store the new decorations. They do also offer annual delivery, installation, and takedown removal to their stores for $33,350. They do not have a lease option available for their decorations. So then I spoke with, got with Holiday Designs. The proposal $69,371. Annual installation of $13,250. This one, we would have to store the decorations. We have a place by the sign shop in the back of the Avante building where those decorations are now. They're on top of the sign shop in that little area that we could clean up and store them and cover them up there. They do offer a lease option. And if you're wondering why that price is so low, back late spring, when I spoke to them, they gave me a quote, and it was a 25% spring discount if you order these decorations at an earlier time. They're going to honor that 25% spring sale for us. So that gives us a much reduced. This company also came out and did a site visit with me. We rode around in different places in the area, and they come back with a proposal. Of course, I had to keep cutting it because it was well over $100,000, of course. And then seasonal design proposal is $102,496. And it's, again, the pricing, if it's not 25% discount, it has to do with the style of the tree or the train set that I actually wanted downtown. So my recommendation, or staff's recommendation, is approve the proposal from Holiday Designs to purchase the Christmas decor for $69,371. I do want to make a few comments too that that's the impact of what new Christmas decorations downtown, what it would do for our businesses. They do contribute to the overall holiday spirit in commercial areas like retail stores, streets, public spaces that will increase the number of visitors to the area, therefore boosting sales for our downtown businesses. Incorporating new commercial design Christmas decorations can revitalize the downtown area, making it a vibrant and bustling destination during the holiday season. And that's what the Main Street program and DDA is all about, is revitalization and redevelopment of the downtown. So I do recommend the approval of the proposal from Holiday Designs. Yeah.
Okay, and I appreciate the work you've done on this. I have for several years now took note that our decorations were aging and they're a reflection on our city. I however, like our tree. I think our tree is just fine. But when I was at the convention in June, there were probably 3 or 4 of these vendors there, and I went down and talked with each one of them, and every one said that they had talked to you. So I appreciate the work that you did on that. I think that this has been long overdue, and let's just see if the council has any questions on it. Anybody? Ms. McCoy.
I do have a question about, you said the option we're going with doesn't include storage. We'll have to store them ourselves.
That's correct.
So I know these are commercial, not stuff you get at Home Depot like the rest of us, but what if like a bulb goes out or something? Do they?
They will come and replace it.
Okay, that's what I wanted
Yep.
to check.
Yes.
Is there a cost for that, Alyssa, or do
No,
we have
there
some
is
sort of a
not.
warranty? Because are they using LEDs?
Yes.
Okay, so they got confidence in that. Ms. McPherson?
I can attest to the fact that the other ones were not designed for high winds. You know, when the soldier throws himself in front of the fire train, I mean, the railroad tracks, or they were all over the place and down several times. I think I talked to one of the same guys, so we will own it, not lease it, so it's ours, and we're not losing that money every year. We've got it, we store it, and we're going to do a tree, or we're not going to do a tree, or?
Yes, there's trees in there.
Yeah,
Tree
okay.
needs replacing.
I like the train idea, too. And additional snowflakes.
Yes.
Further down. No, I love it. Anything we can do to help our downtown businesses and maybe getting them to participate in doing their windows and things like that. People want to hang around where it's pretty, or go down in the evening, take their kids and
Well, this is another
pictures.
way to get people downtown, you know.
And the
not
more
just for
activities
the
we have going
Christmas
on.
event, but to come downtown and they could, you know, can visit the restaurants
Yeah.
and stores, anything to help them out. You're correct. Yes.
Okay. Mr. Montan?
Elisa, what is kind of like the lifespan on these decorations, though? I mean, we're going to own it, and that's
Um,
great, but
Gosh, they talked about that, and it's a good long time, but honestly, I cannot remember what, I had so many conversations with them the last few months.
Well, when you
don't
think about
know.
what Ms. McCoy asked about their maintenance, I mean, how long is that?
It didn't really, I know they talked about it, but they talked about it, but I honestly can't remember. It seemed like I'm thinking about 10, 12 years, maybe.
okay. Well, I mean, because my thought was, I mean, it might actually be better to lease it if we're not having to do a long-term investment in it, if it's something that's kind of relatively short, but 10 to 12 years is probably worth it, so.
Yeah, I think if we store them and take care of them, and of course, those in the Bonte building are just there, so I think we need to wrap them and make sure, because if we start putting them in storage buildings, we have to pay for that, and some of this is pretty big.
Mm-hmm, right.
So.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Mr. Carter?
Is this just 1 year's worth of, over, I didn't get the period of time, this is ongoing or what?
Well, we will purchase these.
Okay,
We
if
will
we're gonna
own
buy
them,
this,
but they, for annual fee with holiday designs of $13,250, they will come and install and take them down for us.
so
Is that
there is an annual fee for it
Yes,
now?
there is.
For the
All
setup.
of them have an annual fee for that.
Okay.
Is that optional as, like if we want them to do it, we pay them? If we don't, if we want to do it ourselves, do we have that option, or are we locked in
Well,
on a
because they're
contract?
commercial style and they have the equipment to do it with, I'd rather them to do it.
Oh, and that's fine. I was just wondering
There are,
if
you
it
know,
was in the contract.
Staff will be putting up some of the other decorations, but if we can relieve them of some of these duties.
So is it in the contract? I'm not saying which one to do.
It's proposal, yes, it's in the proposal.
So the contract would include them bringing it and doing it
Yes.
automatically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so you have on here that it's $69,371. That's the purchase, and then annually for the installation and takedown and storage, which it'll be in our location, but they'll
That's
put it
correct.
up. $13,250 annually, but part of that, I guess, would be, that's a good time for Ms. McCoy's question, which is if you got lights out, they're putting
They
it
will-
up,
they
they
will-
can go ahead and
that's
make the
correct.
adjustments.
That's
So we're
correct.
not dealing with that. I mean, I think that's probably a good idea. All right, any other questions,
Okay.
Mr. Carter?
Currently, all the decorations, the city does that, puts them up, takes them down? Okay.
That's correct.
Yes.
And now we're going to a vendor. Okay.
And all these companies, I don't have that list with me, but they work with nearby cities like Dallas, Hiram, all of those cities. When you start looking at them, you can see a lot of local governments are using this type company for commercial style decor around town that's much larger than what we buy at Home Depot.
Okay.
I guess I got
Mr.
one
Carter.
more question. That at 13,250, is that a locked-in rate for a period of
Yes,
time, or
for, it's either 3 years or 5 years.
one or
three.
the other, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is just the proposal. This is a proposal here.
Yeah, we don't have the agreement yet.
Yeah.
All right, is there any objection to making this consent number 10? Okay, let's move on to, thank you, Alyssa. Let's move on to Parks and Recreation and Leisure Services, F1, Three Rivers Commission, Area on Aging Contract for Services Fiscal Year 2024. Tracy. Hello there.
Hi, guys.
Go ahead.
This is really just a housekeeping measure. It's time to renew our Three Rivers Commission Area Agency on Aging Contract for Services. This is the we're the beneficiary of that in our senior services part of the Recreation Department. It's a one-year renewal, and we are currently we served roughly 18,000 meals from last July through this July. So we are reimbursed for a portion of that. For our home delivered meals, we'll be reimbursed at $8.51 per meal. For our congregate meals, we'll be reimbursed at a figure of $11.78 per meal. And in addition to this reimbursement for our meals, we also receive other benefits from Three Rivers. We've got about $60,000 worth of machinery, equipment, items for our kitchens, things to make our staff's job a lot easier. So it's really a good organization to be a part of. And so we have to have this to continue our meal service. So we're just asking for your approval.
Okay, we do this regularly. Is there any questions on this item? Ms. McPherson.
But it might be for Tom, because you just gave a good sales pitch on additional benefits that you get. Remember when we talked about one time that there was a problem with this too, or how much it was costing on the city side, and we talked about maybe doing it in-house and getting our own caterer? What happened with that, or what was the final result of what we found out? And, because obviously, we're still looking to renew it, so.
So this is just grocery reimbursement. So all the labor's on the city, and the service area isn't just the city. So my two issues were, it felt to me like we were providing a county service. And secondly, it's not a full reimbursement. So, we're actually paying for a senior meals program in the county. So I just wanted y'all to be aware of it.
Yeah, we've had this conversation
during the
years
retreat
in a row. I a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I said, man, probably time to walk away from this. We were just losing too much money. But I think that just was an untenable position, and we ultimately just decided it was worth continuing on. Like a number of city services here, Parks and Recreation, this is part of Parks and Recreation. They don't make money. They often cost money, but they do provide a service. Ours just happens to extend, in this case particularly, although Recreation does to some degree, but we have additional costs for county residents on the recreation services. But here we end up bringing in county folks, and we're subsidizing that meal plan for it. But I don't think that there's ever been any serious discussion about not continuing this. So it's just
Okay, that was it. I just knew it had come up, and I never knew what the results were of looking into that and if it would be beneficial or not. And I guess there's no negotiating with Three Rivers.
I have some figures that might help for the current calendar, the 24 agreement period. We are contracted 5,206 congregate meals. That's where you come to the senior and eat. Okay, at a rate of $11.78 for reimbursement. That's $61,000 in reimbursement.
Against what cost, though?
Well, we only budget $90,000 for food.
So 90,000, 68. But what is the cost of running the?
And then,
anyway,
of course, we do have staffing and the facility overhead and all
that's
those
not
things.
you can't explain it just that simply. I don't mean to. It really is a much larger cost than
It
that.
is.
We got the facilities, we got staff, we got benefits, we've got.
But that's just the reimbursement portion, and that's just
And
part
that's
of the
why
meals.
the numbers don't work, is because there's a larger picture to it than that. But ultimately, what you just talked about is why we pretty much have never felt like we could get away from it, because some of these costs we already had. Now, could we cut some personnel? Sure. Could we cut a vehicle? Sure. But at the end of the day, we're providing a service, and we just haven't decided that we didn't want to do that anymore. So I
Well,
think we'll do it.
Let me say this is, I support the senior program the same way we do recreation. I think it's a quality of life thing that you add to your community, and not that you're looking to make money. I know Temple does their own, they've done that for years, but I've never been a longtime participant. I would pop in with my mom years ago when she lived out there, and I've popped in a few times here, so I don't know how it plays out as a consumer or a customer, how you do it. I just knew we'd brought it up, and I never knew what happened, but I looked and thought, well, we're doing it again. I wonder what happened with the other, and I was just curious what the debate was. But we could talk further about it when we do our committee meeting and get a
Okay.
little bit more feel for.
Yeah, it might be good
the-
to have someone from AAA to come in and just bring you up to speed to really what this full service is.
Yeah, because since we're actually helping pay for people in the county who don't pay city taxes, that makes it a little different, because everything else we do with the county, they reimburse us to a degree on with recreation. So it's a topic worth discussing. We don't need to do a whole bunch of it here. I just didn't know what had occurred when we talked about taking it in-house, possibly.
Okay, Mr. Carter.
Okay. Are the home delivery meals the same food as the congregate meals?
For the most part, we do from time to time serve a frozen portion. It depends on if it's if we have a holiday and we're closed, we still deliver a meal, and it would have to be a frozen type meal.
I was wondering, because the cost on those is so much less than the other meal.
Yeah.
Why is that so much less? Because it's transportation cost and all that?
It's just I know we just turned in our report. We're doing everything we're supposed to do. They take into consideration all of our staffing rates, labor rates, our maintenance overhead. They look at all of those things when they commit so many units and so much, whatever that rate is per meal, that they consider all that. But I don't know why there's this disparity between the two. And we also are eligible for ARPA funds that we, the American Rescue Plan Act, we're eligible for those too. So that would be an additional funds to these that are stated in the contract.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Okay. Is there any objection to making this consent number 11? All right. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Let's go to police, G1, the purchase of 4 Ford Utility Interceptor Explorers at state contract pricing. Lieutenant?
Good
Go ahead.
afternoon. The police department would like to purchase 4 Ford Utility Interceptors, that is the Ford Explorers, to be utilized as full patrol vehicles by our department. Recently, we've moved several vehicles out of our fleet, and we sold a couple and repurposed 1 or 2 other cars. We also chose not to purchase vehicles in the last budget year. But as staffing continues, we need to make sure we have vehicles for the onboarding officers that are coming out of FTO and finishing their training. So we would appreciate approval of this project. This is not a budgeted purpose, but we have available monies on this project to purchase the recent year model Ford Explorers, because the anticipated draft pricing is going to go up $4,000 per vehicle. So we have an opportunity to save a significant amount of money, and we can go ahead and get these vehicles here to the police department, because they are currently on the lot at Wade Ford, who is a state contract holder for these vehicles. After purchasing the vehicles, we got to upfit them with dash and body cams, in-car radios, the installation of all that, as well as the striping. So the total cost of this project is $272,231.16. And just for the impact, if this doesn't go through, we will just have to wait in line for upfitting, and we can go ahead and get these things in line, because the lead time for these items to get delivered and installed is pretty lengthy. So, and it'll avoid us requesting them in the 2024 budget.
Okay. Is this your first time up here?
Second.
Okay. I'm gonna try to put you at ease. There's no need to be any kind of nervous. But so these vehicles are on the lot at Wade Ford.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I believe I was under the impression that these would probably be several months out, which is a reason for ordering them earlier, and then the upfit would be some other several months. So, can you speak to that? I mean, do you think I mean, are those, what is the uptime to upfit them?
I talked to Evan, who is at Metropolitan Communications. We're looking at up to 4 to 6 months just to get the in-car cameras and body cam package in. So with us waiting, that's just going to put the build time that much further out.
Okay, all right. Well, even 6 months is not unacceptable. How many people do we have in the academy right now?
Right now we have one. We had 3 graduate this past week, so they will start their field training process. One has already started, one will start, the other 2 will start Saturday.
Okay.
And we already have one who has been training. He's probably about to go to nights, so he's almost done. So
how many positions do we have open?
I believe it's 8 right now.
Okay. Okay, all right. I can buy it. All right. Anybody? Mr. Carter?
Okay, there was an item in next year's budget for 4 patrol vehicles. Is this it? Or is
No,
this-
sir. This would be an advance purchase in order to save the $16,000+ to go ahead and purchase them, since they were already on the lot at Wade Ford.
Okay. It looks so much like the item that we discussed earlier today.
Yeah, so there's a $4,000 per unit savings by buying these now.
Yes, sir.
Plus they can become available. You have a need for them now, but the 6 months is kind of pushing that.
Yes,
You
sir.
still are going to ask for some cars in the 24 budget.
No, sir. We
You're
will not ask
You're
for
gonna-
cars.
You're going to pull those out.
If this goes through, we will not ask for.
So I think that may
cars
be
in the
Mr. Carter's
2024 budget.
question indirectly, is are we going to try to do both? So
No, sir.
you're not going to, yeah, okay. I think that was Mr. Carter's question.
Yeah.
I needed to clarify. Tom?
How many wrecks have we had where we had totals?
We had one wreck where one vehicle is totaled. We had another wreck where that one is going to be repairable. And we have 2 with engine troubles right now, so they are currently getting repaired as we speak.
It's not usually our fault. People seem to like to hit our cars.
Yeah,
Those under warranty.
Is that not so?
The point is, it's not just the academy that gets us. You know, we're not just taking guys on
Right.
that need cars. We lose cars, not just to age, but
But repairs, accidents,
it's the
things like
total,
that.
the
Yeah.
total accidents that get us.
Yes.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay. Is there any objection to making this consent number 12? You got it, Lieutenant. That was easy.
Thank you,
See?
sir.
All right. Thank you. Let's do H, Public Works. This should be easy, too. Matter of fact, there could be cheering on this one as well. Is it Ethan? Who's doing this? There he comes. This your first time, so you want me to take it? Is that what you, okay. Anytime somebody says that, though, I don't take it easy. I have to initiate the conversation about being, I'm just kidding.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
You leave Ethan alone.
Okay, here we go. So,
Going to be weeping and gnashing of teeth
Eight.
and cheering
Eight.
on this one.
H1, tree removal and stump grinding in Berkeley and Reed Plantation subdivisions and Connors Road, the Connors Road path. Go ahead, Ethan.
Correct. So basically what's happened is the Reed and Berkeley, they was developed in 2002, 2003, and there's a little green strip. You got the road, the green strip, and then the sidewalk. So the trees were planted in the green strip, and essentially over time they have outgrown, busted the curbs and sidewalks, and some are actually lifted quite significantly. I think I got some pictures. So we're going to get them cut and chipped and the stumps ground and all that removed. Then essentially Connors Road is the same situation, but it's just the the sidewalk and it's almost like a golf cart path essentially. So it's really done some damage as the trees has grown. So y'all can tell there.
Yep. I see the images.
So
Go
we're wanting to make a motion to approve Hernandez Brothers Tree Service to remove all trees and grind stumps along the city right-of-way in Berkeley Park, Replantation, and Connors Road for $46,800. And that is for all 3 locations.
So, really, you wouldn't be the one making the motion.
Well,
You're just reading the
yeah,
paper,
that's what
right?
I'm reading.
Yeah, you had written that.
We want approval. I'm sorry.
All right, well, let's talk about it a little bit more, though. Okay. So you showed these images here where these sidewalks are being pushed up, but I don't see anything yet on Connors Road. So this is significant in Berkeley and in Reed, but these are the lowest cost, right? Do you have the cost broken down?
Yes. Now there should be pictures attached for Connors Road.
Well, I'm sure she'll find them. I'm just saying they haven't come up yet.
Okay.
So, there they are. So Connors Road is different though, because this was an asphalt path that had been laid down, and what has happened here is the root system from these trees has come in and broken these up. So what has to happen here is two parts. Really, you're going to have to take down these trees, do these stumps, but then there's going to be a second phase.
Absolutely.
Where you come back and take up the path, mill down or whatever you need to do to get rid of the stumps, and then probably concrete would be my guess at this point, because this didn't work long term.
Pretty much the whole entire sidewalk would have to
But this is long overdue. Anybody who's ever walked this path, and I know Ms. McPherson actually walks these with a vengeance.
It's more fun on a bike, though.
But if you get on a bike or a golf cart, this is rather dangerous. In fact,
they go on the road, because otherwise.
And this is a city path, and this picture doesn't show it, but there's a horrible ravine in at least 2 locations on this road where you could easily be thrown. This has been long overdue. I'm sure Ms. Boyd would like to see this.
That's closer to Carrington, I believe, where you're talking about.
It is. It's just past the pool, but not just there. As you get close to the Publix, if you're traveling toward the Publix on the right-hand side, that is, and the path narrows there too. I know. I've had the unfortunate opportunity to teach Eli to drive of late, and we started in a car, but that didn't work for my heart. So we moved to the golf cart, and that path has made it no better because I've told him to park it in the basement. We'll deal with that when he's 18.
So with Connors Road, this is just going to affect the side that the sidewalk is on. So obviously there's trees on both sides of the road, but this is just going to affect
where the path is.
Correct.
Yep. Okay, any questions from council on this, Mr. Carter?
All right, you're going to have to help me through this, because I went through each of these bids, and I'm seeing Richmond quoted 80 for Berkeley, 92 for Reed. Casey quoted 82 for Berkeley, 93 for Reed. Hernandez, 74 for Berkeley, 94 for Reed. West Georgia, 175 for both subdivisions. And only Hernandez and West Georgia showed something for Connor Road.
So hold
How
on.
did we not tell them how many trees, or did we not?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So all 4 was aware of the amount of trees and.
We told them how many, but they quoted
they
different
actually
numbers.
count. I told them how many trees there was, and they also did a count themselves. And if you read the
Obviously
invoice,
came up with different counts.
So West Georgia Tree Service for Connors Road is $37,820, and then Reed and Berkeley is $36,750, which all 3 combined is $74,570. And then Richmond, let's see here, Reed Plantation, $48,390. And then Berkeley was $36,050, which is $84,440.
I didn't see anything for Connor from them.
So we did not get a quote from either Richmond or Casey Tree Experts. We just stuck to the 2 lower bids.
Okay.
So we started out with Reed and Berkeley first, and then we moved to Connors Road.
So you didn't include Connor for the first couple of people? They didn't know about Connor, or what?
Correct. Yeah, we started with Reed and Berkeley. Then the numbers come in, and we got a quote for Connors as well.
Okay, my concern is we want to go with Hernandez for the 46,800, and that includes Connor, 20,000 for Connor. but the number of trees is 74 in Berkeley, 94 in Reed. Are we sure we're covering all the trees? Because that's a different number than the others were quoting.
Yes, sir. I mean, we could not have been more clear.
We put a yellow ribbon around all the trees.
Well, we
Take these down.
We
okay?
personally, Hal and I, the Public Works Director, personally went out there and they was in the vehicle with us, and we said this.
I just want to make sure we get all the trees down we want down for
Absolutely.
this price. Make sure they understand.
Yes, sir.
They can't leave some behind.
Yeah, and Hernandez, they've kind of itemized it. So cut down 68. That's Connors.
Yeah, they said
And then
68 on Connor.
94.
West Georgia says 62 on Connor.
So there was 4 or 5 trees that Hernandez quoted that I'm not 100% sure if it's going to be in the right of way. So we just got to make sure that is going to be in the right of way before them are removed.
I just want to make sure
Obviously,
if
it's
we give them the contract that they're going to cut down what we need cut down.
Yes, sir.
Okay. 'Cause I've had some trees cut down just last week, and they took some extra ones down for the same price, but, if you don't tell them in advance, they might argue with you, but, that's not part of the deal.
Right.
Yeah, Ethan, that'll be up to you to make sure that you oversee that project.
Yeah.
That's
Yes,
going to
sir.
be your
We
responsibility.
don't want to
We're
come up
gonna
short
expect
for this
you-
price,
Yeah, like I said,
even though it is a low bid.
we couldn't have been more clear on.
Well, I
what
don't
we
know, Mr.
expect.
Carter just talked about a yellow ribbon. You probably could have been more clear.
Well,
I mean, there are ways to do it.
I
I'm
put
just
one
messing-
on every
I'm
one
just
of my
messing with
trees,
you,
and they
Ethan.
took some extras down too,
That's
so.
what they used to tell me to do when a light fixture was out, to tie, some caution tape
Right,
on the
is
pole
it-
with the light out, because you can't see it during the day. I do have a
Ms.
question.
McPherson?
Go ahead.
Okay, Ethan, and it would, Bobby knows more about this, so I don't know if it applies at all anymore, because we've been talking about this for years. And I already got my answer from Sarah on the fact that, and Hal, that they are going to notify people, so people don't panic when all of a sudden they're going, where's
Absolutely.
all the trees going
Right.
today? There was something said a couple years ago, because obviously they want their sidewalks fixed. At the same time, there's going to be people that are miss the shade, miss the beauty of all those trees changing colors down that main drive, even in Reed. And there was talk about whether people could plant their own, or if something was going to be done to help that. Is there anything in the works aside from what we're doing here?
I'm not aware of
Okay.
anything, but if it's their private property, as long as they're planting on their property, I don't imagine there was anything that we could legally do.
Yeah, okay. At one time, remember, we were even going to maybe subsidize trees because we were taking all the trees. I'm not saying whether that should happen or not, but we probably want to make sure that people don't plant them too close to the sidewalk.
Well, and that's another thing. It's affecting every utility that's underground. Water, gas, sewer. It's not just the sidewalks that's being impacted. It's everything.
Appreciate that. Hadn't been told that.
All right, Mr. Carter?
Okay, all these trees we're talking about are on our public land, right? We're not talking about any private property trees.
Correct.
Okay.
Except possibly the ones that may not be in the right of way,
Right.
in which case we won't
But
touch
we
those.
can for sure clear that up before they're cut. Absolutely.
Right, and it is, and you and I had talked about this, but it is worth noting and at least being clear about that we're not just talking about aesthetics and convenience in terms of these sidewalks. They're actually having real impacts on some of the utilities and the infrastructure. And there is a clear safety issue.
Absolutely, yeah. It's
and the city is responsible for the city's sidewalks. Okay, anybody else? Okay, any objection to making this consent number 13? All right, good job, Ethan. Thank you. Okay, let's go to I. Deputy City Manager, CFO, Ms. Sarah Andrews. Item 1, approval of Placer.ai, marketing development tool. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor
Go
and
ahead.
Council. Yes, so we have a quote here from Placer AI. They are a platform that uses cell phone data to provide analytics of how many people are in certain locations, where they've come from, what other locations they like to visit. So, for instance, if you want to She's pulling it up right now. And as a side note, privacy is not violated for the actual cell phone users. If you have an app where you use your location services, say your Fitbit app or anything like that, you know how it always, like if you're, a lot of the meal delivery or Walmart app, if you're doing delivery, it has the location services. Well, that location information is being stored and companies like this are using it. So for instance, oh.
I don't see it.
I don't have anything on me, okay.
Do you have it in the work session? Oh, okay. So when I met with the guy, he did a demo. It's probably been a year now or so, but he went to Vplex. So he's looking at a map, and I tell him, you know, where our location was. He circled kind of a geofence on the map of where Vplex is. On a certain date, he was able to dive in and see how many cell phones were used in that area on that day. So when Teresa gets it pulled up, you'll see the cell phone data, well, the cell phone users that were in at the Vplex July 3rd for 4 or 5 years in a row. From this information, we don't just see how many people are there, but it tells us the top visited locations that these cell phone users go to. So
I know I'm familiar with this plan and this what you're presenting, but there's no supporting document here, so we don't have any idea what we're even looking at. Is there a cover sheet?
Other than that we're being tracked all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, what she's talking about is really a good system. I mean, we're going to find a lot of use for it, but there's no.
Sorry. This must have been a miscommunication between me and Ken. We were tag teaming, so it may have been my job to put it up there. I'm sorry.
So some of the uses for it, I don't know that maybe you've developed some purposes, but the use is to be able to see how traffic or how people move throughout the city. So you could, for instance, find out how many people come to Billerica each day, commute in, how many leave. You could find out how many attend certain events, how many people are in our downtown, at what time are they there. When are we most impacted? Where are they at in the city? I mean, there's probably a host of things that I didn't watch the demo.
And where they're coming from. So how far are people traveling for our concerts, for our events, to go to our restaurants and things. So, and for marketing purposes, it gives us a chance to see, okay, maybe we don't need to target West Georgia for certain concerts. We need to, we're going to spend money in the Atlanta market, advertising on the radio there. I think we'll get a better picture of where people are coming from for certain events. But it also can be used for stores. How far are people traveling to come to our Starbucks? Or, if we're needing to see for future development, maybe we could prove, again, how many people, where they're coming from, where they're going. So, like you said, Mayor, I think how people are moving within the city. For us specifically, I think we could use it for marketing. I think there's things we don't even know we could do with it. So.
Yeah, and I think, but we're at a disadvantage here because we don't know how much it costs. We don't know anything.
It's $12,000. Sorry, it was budgeted. It was approved on this current year's budget for $12,000. That's what our quote is for. So.
Okay, let's do two things. So let's do this. Let's see, A, if council has any questions on it, and B, let's hold this over to the regular meeting and get together a cover sheet or get it loaded up so these guys can take a look at it. I haven't seen it either, so
yeah,
let's see if we have any questions.
I'm looking at the regular meeting, and it's the same thing in the regular meeting. There's no data to go with it.
Right.
So y'all gonna load that in before?
I can. Yeah, that may have been my fault. I'm sorry.
That's okay, but do y'all have any questions on what she has presented so far? Sure, well, because if it's going to be about the money, I get that, or the terms, or that kind of thing. Okay, we're just going to have to hold this over to this evening, okay?
Thank you.
There's an order form in here. Are you guys not seeing this order form?
I'm not
City of
seeing
Billerica?
anything on.
Are y'all looking on the work session agenda?
I'm in the work session agenda. Oh, okay, we'll just take it over. There does appear to be some sort of an attachment right there. Says there's. Wait a minute. I do see something in here, but I'm not able to open it. Can you get it? You know what's happening. There's been some glitches, just so everybody knows. Teresa's been working on it. In fact, she had to redo the formatting. You'll notice the city seal is not the way it was before. Yesterday it was blurry. Today it's been anyway, there's a few little glitches that she's been working on. Just give her, we'll give her a moment to do that. We could. Why don't we do that, Tom? Why don't you go ahead? Let's talk about, you figure out where all that is, and let's do J1, scheduling of the citywide cleanup for October 9 through October 20, 2023. It's be for 2 weeks this time. Go ahead, Tom.
So each year, we've had a designated week to pick up pretty much whatever people want to put out on the curb. A couple of years ago, we moved it to October, and we were trying to piggyback on Keep Carroll Beautiful event that would take place right before ours. So we were doing like the 3rd or 4th week of October. But now that we have split our curbside up to a 2-week cycle, we need to do it over 2 weeks instead of a week. And because of events that are scheduled in the 4th week of October, we'd like to do it in the 2nd and 3rd week. And we would like to duplicate the Wednesday senior pickup day that we do each year. So you see the recommendation there for the weeks and the days.
Okay, so this is to schedule the citywide cleanup for October the 9th through October the 20th this year. Tom just gave you some of the reasons about why this is going to be over 2 weeks. Has anybody got any questions on it? All right, if there are no questions, is there any objection to making it consent number 14?
Quick question.
Yes.
Just, do we have any way, we were partnering with them maybe because they have tire collection sometime, then we wouldn't have to get tires, or are they still coming in at any time in that month that we can?
I haven't heard.
Okay, and I guess.
We'll ask.
Didn't they do that on a different schedule this year, though?
They do a spring and a fall, so hopefully they'll do in October. I think we're just.
Okay, well, we're designating these weeks now, but we need to get as much information out as we can.
Yeah, this works better for us this year.
Is there anything else on here, Tom, that you don't need to have the documents on the screen?
I mean,
Road Engineering.
I'll do the next one, yeah.
You want to try
Priest
that?
is making progress.
Yeah.
So back in
14.
Back in maybe 15 and 16, before I got here, we had Falcon put together a concept plan for Connors Road Park. We, at some point in there, asked for money in the Douglas SPLOST, and I guess in early 23, we asked Falcon to update the plan, and specifically, we asked them to disconnect the 2 trails. So there's a walking trail and a mountain bike trail, and they crossed each other, which I didn't feel like was safe. So I asked them to decouple them so that if they did cross, it would be like in a gully where the mountain bike course would be in the gully, and then there'd be a bridge over it where the walking trail would still cross looking at it from an aerial, but you didn't have any issues with the mountain bike guys taking out the pedestrians. And so they've done that. So what we need to do now is have them begin the engineering, which is going to be really difficult. That site was given to us for a reason, and we're about to deal with that reason. And one of the issues is you can't get to the top of it. It's just very steep and a good bit of rock. So they're going to start out by trying to design the driveway, to actually engineer the driveway so that you can get a piece of heavy equipment up it. So a bus, a fire truck has got to be able to get to the top of it. So they'll do that first. And then the rest of it's pretty routine for them. So dog park and the other things that we had in place there. And then we'll come back with construction, and we have some money in the Douglas SPLOST, I think around $720,000 maybe. Michael wishes it was 1.2 million. So we'll come back to you once we get the engineering done and see what we got left and what we think it's going to cost, and we may have to phase it. We have not yet had a conversation about turf versus AstroTurf, so we'll probably come back and have a conversation about that and the benefits and the cost. And we're also going to come back with a recommendation on how the dog park is going to operate, because it may turn out to be like the worst thing we ever did, depending on how compliant the dog owners are. Can't really blame it on the dogs, but if the dogs were compliant, that would be good too, but you can't really expect that. So there's a lot to this. We're probably going to get a mountain bike outfit involved with us to help from their perspective, because, you know, the guys that are doing this probably aren't mostly mountain bikers. So anyway, we need some money to get them going. It's going to be difficult.
There was an organization already involved
The first time.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
first time around,
predates
so
you.
we should make sure we reach out to them. And this, does it say on there, but this should be funded out of the Douglas County SPLOST?
Right.
Yep, okay. All right, any questions, Mr. Carter?
Okay, have we talked to any of the cities that have dog parks? I know Decatur has a dog park. My son lives out there, so I know about it. Have we talked to any of them around here that have dog parks?
I haven't. I've just been talking to the guys about it and how much they're looking forward to cleaning it up. So
I'm talking about, you know, how they operate their dog parks, stuff like that. Some of them are successful, some of them
I
aren't.
haven't.
Well,
We-
they're not
we will.
unusual. We are
No,
not
they're
paving.
all over the place.
We're not paving a blazing trail on this. I mean,
No.
there's dog parks all over the place. I mean, maybe not here, but there seems to be a big desire for them. I think one thing you need to probably be careful about, and I don't remember the space, but I will say that there was a certain amount of money already allocated toward this, as I recall. And we might even be locked into a certain amount way back predating you, when there were certain pots decided as to how much of that Douglas SPLOST money would go into different things on the Douglas
Yeah.
County side. So we need to be clear on that. But on the dog parks, it's helpful if you separate the little ones from the big ones. So, even at Disney, they do that. I don't use it because my dog doesn't care about going in there and playing, and I don't get any exercise when she does that. But there's a purpose and a reason why you may not want, you know, the giant Rottweiler coming over where the little fluffy dog is or something. And you know, if there is an issue, at least maybe they have a chance to survive. But, you know, they're popular. I'm glad we're moving on this. And yeah, the bike guys, and there's probably even some trail people. There's people that love this stuff that will give their services for free. I believe the bike people did. They love this stuff. So they'll give their advice, and they know it better than we do.
They were gung-ho when they came out before, so. All right, anybody else? Okay. Is there any objection to making this consent number 15? Okay, let's go to J3, Design of South Street Improvements with Georgia and West. Tom?
You ready? No, Sarah's ready.
You want to go back to that? All right, come on. That's fine. So you had 2 attachments.
All right, if you'll scroll down. So like I said, I did a demo with this person about a year ago. Keep going, Teresa, if you would. And like I said, he was looking at a map. I gave him a date and a place. Keep going. And keep going. Yeah, that's just a little bit about them. Okay, so told him where the fireworks were and when they happened. So he did, like I said, a little geofence about exactly right around Vplex and where the parking is contained. Keep going. And so this is a map of where people were coming from for that event. So you can see how widespread it attracts folks all the way down Noonan and Riverside, all the way up to Dallas. Yeah, Aragon. Yeah, way up there. So that gives you kind of the hot spots of where people are coming from. Keep going down. This tells you more numbers. So they're saying in 2018 we had about 6,800 people there in that time period. And obviously there was nothing in 2020. The last one in the yellow, the far right, that's 2022. We were back up to 4,400 people visiting. keep going down, if you will. And again, that's cell phone users. So that doesn't take into account kids that don't have cell phones or people who have all their location services. This is just cell phones in the location that have their location services turned on for one app or another. This I thought was really interesting. Of those cell phones, these are commonly visited places by those people. So the people that are coming to our July 3rd, this is where they hang out. So Walmart, Waffle House, a couple of the shopping centers, spend a lot of time in Kroger at Douglasville, Longhorns. Some of these are like shopping centers with multiple stores, so you wouldn't know exactly. But I thought that was pretty interesting. Keep going down. This tells you how long they stayed, how many by minute. So, you know, a few, I would say to the far left, those are people that may have just been driving through. But the far right, you see people stayed for greater than 150 minutes at the event. So I think that might be it. Going down. Okay, so that's a sample based on July 3rd, but we could do that for events, but we could also do it for stores or neighborhoods. And not that, again, we're not trying to, the app itself doesn't allow for privacy to be invaded, but gives you an idea generally of where people are coming from.
So where do they get the historical data from, 2018, 2019?
It's the cell phone data.
So the same, but they have that data available to them
And
already?
I don't know how far back. That's a good question.
Okay, but we could use that, I mean, we could use that to compare, well, in 18, it was
Correct.
this number of folks, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have any?
Yeah, I
Mr.
couldn't
Carter?
hear what was going on. What's the use we would make of this information?
So I think a real easy use for it would be for marketing purposes, to see where people are coming from, where we can best spend our dollars as far as advertising for events. So that's just July 3rd. You can see it's widespread, but it's still people who live in Carrollton, people who live in Villa Rica, people who live in Bremen. We're not necessarily pulling people out of Atlanta. But I would be interested to see what our events are doing, our concerts, where people are coming from. This would give us an accurate representation of where people are coming from, and then we can figure out either where to do more marketing, maybe where not to spend money on marketing. Maybe that's not working. That's not the group we're attracting. I'm not sure. So I think that would be kind of the first thing we could use it for. But I would think, as we are growing and developing, that there could be other more development type uses for it.
So, and I know we've talked about this probably for a year. Maybe it's been a year. And I remember when you first talked about it, some of the examples for what we would use it for seemed really engaging. But right now, I'm just drawing a blank. And I'm trying to convince myself that we can find some sort of a use for it. So when I read the motion, it says to provide market analysis data to the city for an amount not to exceed. What data do we expect to get, or do we have to ask for it, or is this some packet of information that we'll be able to get and then we can get updated regularly, or do we have a piece of software or an app? Or?
It's software. So we would have control over what information we're getting out of it. It did come up, Carol Tomorrow had hired the retail coach. So they come into communities to figure out how they can help bring certain restaurants or retail. And this was the software that they had used. So the information that they had provided was from this software as well.
So is this an annual fee? Is this an annual cost?
Yes, that's annual.
Yeah. So I'm going to say from a mile high, looking down, I just know there must be some really good uses for this, but in my mind, I'm not finding them. I think I could, we'll see what the council thinks, but I mean, I think I could probably be okay with us trying this for a year, but I would need to see next year that we really got some benefit out of it, that you were able to point to, these are where we was able to benefit. This is how we was able to save money. We were able to target our marketing or whatever it comes out to be. I don't know how it could be useful. Something tells me it could be useful. And I hate to just slam the door and think, let's not try those kinds of things, because there probably is a good use. I just don't know what it is right this minute. Mr. Carter?
Okay. How often is our data updated? Is this a weekly thing, a daily thing? I mean, you don't get just a one-shot deal at it, do you?
Oh, no.
It's an ongoing process.
It has to be constantly feeding, right?
Okay, it's constantly feeding us data, so we're getting it, what, daily, weekly?
I don't know exactly, but I would think it's more
minute by minute.
Right, I would think
You
it's
can
more
just look
accurate
in
than that.
and find the data
Mhm,
at any
yes.
time.
Yeah, and I've just seen a demo. I haven't looked at it myself, but he was able to go back to 2018, so that's 5 years worth. It could go back further. Again,
But the data's constantly changing, so
Correct.
when you take a snapshot, it's that point in time. So
well, that was a snapshot for the screen, but you have the control to pick the place and the dates, and then it refreshes the information.
Oh, okay, they store in the data and you have access to the stored
Right,
data.
right. You can analyze the data.
Okay.
You can just log in and get it instant information, and it's probably live. I mean,
Right.
I would think it's
I
probably
would-
in real time, what we call real time today. Ms.
I mean,
McCray.
I could,
I feel like what we're missing is the commercial they need to give us to sell this. It's like trying to explain something that we have a little bit of information, it's all vague, and I don't think we're getting what it can benefit us. But I'll bet you if they do this sort of thing somewhere, there's a video that says, this is what this can do for your city, this and that. But I agree with the mayor that I would want to then go back and go, okay, what benefit did we receive from that? Going into it, I want to feel like confident, but then I want to be able to prove that we got some benefit. This might be one example. If you're doing a whole lot for a concert or an event to draw people from out of town that are going to stay in your hotels, but then you do your data search and you find out they come from Carrollton and Douglasville and they didn't stay in your hotel, they didn't eat in your restaurant, maybe they did. You go, okay, that wasn't what we were looking for, and it could give us that data. That's an example I can think of, but it seems to, like, out there right now, we need like a 5-minute commercial that just says, this is how it works, da-da-da-da-da. They've got to have something like that in the
I'll get
industry.
you in just a second, Ms. McCoy. Let's do Mr. Montahan.
no, I mean, that's exactly what I was thinking about, Leslie, or Councilwoman McPherson. We're doing acts, and we've got acts for Main Street, and maybe they're not pulling the kind of people that we want them to pull. So maybe we need to look at different acts that are more regional or more national to attract the hotel motel user that we're trying to feed into. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I mean, just at the Main Street, for the Main Street downtown department, so.
All right, Ms. McCoy.
Yeah, a couple of years ago at GMA, the people at Woodstock used something similar, and that is what they do. They track their events to say what restaurants are they going to, and like the data they just pulled for the fireworks. I think on that list there were some that went to Longhorn and Carrollton, so we could use that data to know that, hey, if there was a similar type restaurant in Villa Rica, they might be headed that way after it. I think that's more what it's used for, and because the guys in Woodstock that I talked to, they did a really good job of explaining it and understanding not just where to market an event or demographics or anything, but it was showing like where people were coming from and what they were doing afterwards.
That is a good point. This company uses this software, is used by over 500 cities, including Woodstock, Duluth, and Suwanee. So we might be able to get some user tips from those other communities as well.
Yeah, I mean, I remain convinced that it probably has a really useful purpose. It just isn't all kind of sinking into me right now. Let me. Is there any objection to making this consent number
No.
16?
One more.
All right, Mr. Carter.
Okay, I'm looking at the data on the screen here and it says Villa Rica fireworks and in different years for the fireworks. Did they go back and some way retrieve this data for display purposes?
Yes, so they had the cell phone data back to 2018. I'm not sure how far back they can go, but they were able to pull the historical data all the way back to 2018.
They gave us 4 years worth up through the fireworks of last year.
Uh-huh,
So this is actual data that they had stored
yes.
for Villa Rica.
Uh-huh.
That's interesting. I didn't know they were storing data for a lot of cities. Why Villa Rica in particular?
They have access to some sort of cell phone location data.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't have a gavel. Here we go. I think the mayor was asking if we wanted to go consent agenda, and I was actually going to say, why are we consenting to buy something that at least several of us are going, does it benefit us or not?
Yeah, but we have to do 1 year's worth to find out.
Well,
Just 1
shouldn't,
year.
are we going to hear a better,
I don't have any objection to putting on a consent agenda for just one, because
I
we'll just
don't either
revisit
for
it
1
next
year.
year.
Okay.
We gotta try it.
Okay, all right.
think it'd be beneficial.
That's C16.
All right.
Number 16.
I have no, is that 16?
Yeah, that's
Okay, because
16.
I lost count a while ago, and I'm at least one behind.
Okay, we're on. J.
Okay, development of Carroll County incentives policy.
No, you don't.
No?
Three. Design of South Street.
Oh, I'm
improvement.
sorry, yes. Design of South Street improvements with Georgia and West.
All right, South Street needs some work. It's an old residential road between the old Georgia State Patrol site and Jefferson's. John Bass at Georgia and West has done the site design for the fire station. I'd like to have him design the street improvements so that I don't have to coordinate another pair of engineers who are in adjacent projects. Can you slide down on the cover sheet? So he's given us a proposal for $22,600 to put that plan together. It will include improving the turn radius at where South Street intersects with Highway 78. And then after this is done, then we'll we'll have to go out to bid and bid that work and come back to you for a proposal on the construction.
Okay, any questions from council? All right, Ms. McPherson.
Yeah, I know we're improving it primarily because of the fire station. That's Councilman Momtahan's ward on South Street. We had some complaints. I don't know how far we're going up that road. We had some complaints over there, just like the high school road, with people speeding coming through. Is there going to be, and I don't know how far up that road we're going, anything as far as traffic calming?
This is
Totally.
just to the back of the old Georgia State Patrol site.
Which is going to take care of the fire station that's
Right,
going
and
in.
anything behind that would just be our regular milling and top coating.
Okay,
But
so
we're going to have to just
something
completely
to look at.
rebuild this part of the road to make it strong enough for the truck.
And that's just that small section. Nothing else will be done to the rest of the street at
Just-
this time.
Right.
Okay, then it wouldn't apply. All right.
All right, anybody else? All right, any objection to making that consent 17? Consent 17. All right, J4, development of Carroll County incentives policy. This is, go ahead.
So the Carroll Chamber has a new director, and they are, that person, Brian Dill, is proposing to create a bigger development authority footprint that would include Carroll, Harrelson, and Hurd, and to put together a joint incentives policy so that we don't get played against each other depending on where a developer's trying to negotiate a land purchase and a development. I think the total cost of putting this together is $39,000, and there's 10 of us that are in this new development authority. So our cost would be $3,900. I could approve that, but I wanted y'all to know what's being asked and why and from who, so that you can weigh in on whether you want to be a part of this. I recommend that we do. I think that what we're going to see come out of this might be some regional development efforts that we would have an opportunity to partner with, but that would not sit in Villa Rica. And I'm thinking more like the 4-county development authority that has been created out on the other side of Covington. So that sort of is the parallel to, I think, what we're trying to do here. So staff recommendation is to approve.
All right, is there any questions for Tom on this item? All right, if there are no questions, is there any objection to consent number 18? All right, let's do J5, disclosure notification by Stevens for urban redevelopment agency bonds.
So Stevens is the organization that we use as a bond underwriter. That's Bill Johnston's organization. and they are required to give us this disclosure notification. I guess it's maybe a federal requirement. Man, I'm thinking it's federal. So the documents attached to this thing, I wouldn't recommend you read it necessarily, but if you want to read it, you can look through it and see what you think about it. But this is in regard to us issuing bonds and him advising us as a financial advisor. He's also billing us, and so there's some sort of conflict there that this document's trying to make us aware that, you know, he's helping us go in debt and charging us and that interaction. So we recommend that we just acknowledge that we have received it.
You looked at this, David?
I have not yet, but I will between now and tonight.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Tom? All right. Is there any objection to making this consent number 19?
Did David say he looked at it? I didn't get that.
I have not looked at it yet, but
Shouldn't he look at it before we go any further?
Well, you just notify us tonight. If everybody's okay with it, you just notify us tonight if there's any reason to pull it off.
I will.
Okay.
We have to approve one of these every time we do bonds.
It'd be easier if we just go ahead and do it. And David, you just let us know if we need to pull it back. Okay, we've reached the end. Tom, I'll go over the consent agenda in a minute. You had asked me earlier about doing the city manager's report.
You want to do it now or you want to do it tonight?
Well,
it's getting late.
It is getting late, and so I think we'll just wait and do it tonight, because
Okay.
I think we're going to clear up a lot of this with the consent agenda. I would have been okay with that, but let's do it. All right, so I'm going to, let me do public comments first, and then I'll do the consent agenda. So we had a sign-up sheet out front. There is a name on here. I'll call out this name, and then I'll give an opportunity afterwards if somebody wanted to speak who didn't put their name on here. Is it Doug Morrison? Or, sir, come on up here. If you would give us your name and address for the record, we will give you 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Doug Morrison. I live at 116 Airhead Drive in Cartersville, Georgia.
Yes, sir.
I'm here to talk about the variance request for the gravel parking lot. I just want to give you a little history on that piece of property.
Okay, go ahead.
It has been gravel since 1966. And of course, right now it's just an overgrown lot. You can't really tell, but the previous businesses that were there, it was gravel. And she addressed, like I said, it's the gateway to your town. You know, if we could get in there, we would make it a presentable place to do business and keep it cut and mowed where it looks decent. And there's probably would never be more than 2 or 3 cars there at any given time, should that happen.
Okay. Is that all?
That's it.
Okay. So tonight there'll be a public hearing on that item, and you're welcome to come back. And at that time, we'll open it up for people to speak for or against it.
Okay.
Am I right? Is that item got a public hearing?
Yeah.
Yeah. You caught me off guard because that's an item that we took over to tonight. But
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
welcome to
we'll
speak
go.
public comments anyway, so don't worry about that.
Well,
But you can come back tonight.
This is
You'll-
my first time, so I didn't know.
Oh, no. That's perfectly fine. I was going to stop you, and I said, well, hell, just let him do it.
All
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else here want to do public comments? Come on up here, sir. Give us your name and address for the record, and we'll give you 2.5 minutes.
Mayor and council, thank you. I'm Michael Young, 9634 Coastal Point Drive here in Mirror Lake, Villa Rica. The 2016 Douglas County SPLOST allocated 15.4% of the funds to Parks and Rec in Douglas County. At the end of the SPLOST, that was $1,173,697. Of that, $195,243 were spent last fiscal year, and we still have a bare mountain. There's nothing there, so we spent $200,000 on studies with no results. There are currently almost $10,000 this fiscal year encumbered for events there, and I don't. Of course, we'd have to go back through city council meetings to find out what that $10,000 is. When you approved the current Douglas County SPLOST, I chastised the city council about nothing being done for health and welfare of Douglas County. And at that point, the city manager offered up infrastructure. So I would challenge the city council to make the road into this park, the water and sewer facilities for that park, the electrical for that park is all infrastructure and come out of infrastructure funds rather than a SPLOST.
Okay. As always, interesting commentary. I'll go back and look at some of those numbers. I would say that Douglas County SPLOST for Parks and Rec money wasn't just spent at Connors Road. It was certainly also spent at the Pine Mountain Gold Museum. But your comments are noted. We'll take a look at it. Anybody else want to speak in public comments? Okay. I'll close public comments and let me now do the consent agenda. So I'm going to go through this and create the consent agenda. And if you hear anything different, I'll hear those at the end and also any objections. Consent number 1, fiscal year 24 medical and ancillary insurance renewal. Consent number 2, fiscal year 24 insurance premium rates. Consent number 3, temporary placement of signage for the rodeo organized by Clint Chance. Consent number 4, employee training. This is implicit bias. Consent number 5, cost for lighting along Mirror Lake Boulevard pathway. Consent number 6, revision to Code of Ordinances, Villa Rica Fats, Oils, and Grease policy. Consent number 7, temporary signage for fundraiser sponsored by the Villa Rica Lions Club and Golden City Lions Club. Consent number 8, final plat approval for Connors Landing. Consent number 9, final plat approval Charleston Place Phase 3. Consent number 10, new Christmas decor for downtown. Consent number 11, Three Rivers Commission Area on Aging contract for services fiscal year 2024. Consent number 12, purchase of 4 Ford Utility Interceptor Explorers at state contract pricing. Consent number 13, tree removal and stump grinding in Berkeley and Reed Plantation subdivisions and Connors Road path. Consent number 14, scheduling of citywide cleanup for October 9 through October 20, 2023. Consent number 15, Connors Road Park engineering by Falcon Design. Consent number 16, approval of Placer.ai marketing development tool. Consent number 17, design of South Street improvements with Georgia and West. Consent number 18, development of Carroll County incentives policy. Consent number 19, disclosure notification by Stevens for urban redevelopment agency bonds. Does anybody hear that differently or have any objections? All right, hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you create the consent agenda as I have just read it out? Mr. Macklin.
Yeah, I was just going to say I did read over the disclosure notification by Stevens, and it's fine.
Okay.
Before you leave, I did get copies of the report printed out, so I'll hand it out before you get out of here.
If you would do that, that'd be great. Do you have anything else?
Let me qualify that. It's a report without the appendices. I've been trying to email it to you, but it's too large, and that's why the email's not going out. So it is the report without the appendices, but we'll get those to you later.
Does that report have the redactions or no?
Pardon? They're just the supporting information of what he's got in his copies of pictures and the SOP statistics from the police department. I mean, they're referenced in there, so you see what they are. I didn't get them copied because it would have been another couple of thousand trees killed.
Well, if you could get all those from Connors Road, it'd be all right. All those trees. You have anything